Correct, yes.
So again, we have 3 nominees, Ahmed Abdullah, Preston Chip, and Catherine Willie. So I believe we're passing out the ballots right now.
They get one vote. They need to write their name and their district number.
Okay. All right, so you can only vote for one candidate. They're up on the board. You'll need to write, I think, I just saw the piece of paper, you need to sign your name to it and indicate if you're an at-large or which district you're from. And then when they're done, if you will raise your hand, we will then collect them and bring them up front and tabulate.
They're going to do their best to keep them in.
So again, there are 3 names. This is to fill 1 vacancy, okay? So you can't put more than 1 name on the ballot. We got all ballots? Okay. Anybody still have a ballot? Okay. So here's what we'll do. I think they're now in order. We'll call the names, just make sure we've got the right information, and then we'll tabulate the votes. Again, only voting for 1 candidate at this point. Madam Clerk, you ready? That microphone sounds like it's not working.
You are correct. Is it on? Oh, okay.
Okay. So a change in plans. Director Zyland's going to read the names.
Okay. Councilman Mendez, Hamid Abdullah. Councilmember Hurt, Abdullah. Councilmember Swara, Abdullah. Councilmember Hall, Abdullah. Councilmember Gamble, Abdullah. Councilmember Swope, Ship. Councilmember Parker, Abdullah. Councilmember Withers, Abdullah. Councilmember Benedict, Abdullah. Councilmember Van Rees, Abdullah. Councilmember Hancock, Ship. Councilmember Young, Ship. Councilmember Hager, Ship. Councilmember Evans, Ship. Councilmember Bradford, Ship. Councilmember Roten, Ship. Councilmember Syracuse, Abdullah. Councilmember Welsh, Abdullah. Councilmember Cash, Wiley. Councilmember O'Connell, Abdullah. Councilmember Roberts, Wiley. Councilmember Taylor, Abdullah. Councilmember Hauser, Wiley. Councilmember Druffel, Ship. Councilmember Murphy, Ship. Councilmember Pulley, Abdullah. Councilmember Johnston, Abdullah. Councilmember Nash, Ship. Councilmember Vercher, Wiley. Councilmember Porterfield, Abdullah. Councilmember Sepulveda, Abdullah. Councilmember Rutherford, Wiley. Councilmember Stiles, Wiley. Councilmember Lee, Abdullah. Councilmember Henderson, Ship. Councilmember Rosenberg, Abdullah. Is that what you had? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the vote was for Hamid Abdullah, 19 votes. For Preston Ship, 11 votes. And for Catherine Willie, 6 votes. So based upon, under Rule 50, it's a majority wins. So Hamid Abdullah is selected tonight. Okay. Mr. Abdullah, you're welcome to stay, or you can leave, whichever you'd like to do. Oh, you brought your children, so congratulations, and now everybody can leave. All right, so the next one is the Director of the Metropolitan Department of Finance. This is the appointment of Saul Solomon to serve as interim director. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. Yes, we considered Mr. Saul Solomon for interim director of finance, and we voted 6 in favor, 0 against.
Okay. And so the motion would be?
I'm sorry, and I would move his approval.
So there is a motion to approve the appointment of Saul Solomon as the interim director for the Department of Finance, properly seconded. Discussion on the appointment. And this one, based upon the charter, needs 21 votes. Councilmember Cash, you're recognized.
Thanks. I am excitedly voting for Mr. Solomon to fill this position on an interim basis. Not only is he a great guy and has filled numerous roles in Nashville and in Nashville government, I think his ethics are impeccable. I'm not only happy to support him, but thankful that he is willing to step up and serve in this capacity. I believe he's not only has great leadership skills that could be effective in any department in this government, but also he does have a significant financial experience, financial background, both in the private and public sector. Maybe not exactly what a CFO of a company, but has significant experience supervising people who fill that role. So I am, without question, supporting him tonight.
Right. Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Mendez.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Like Councilman Cash, I think Mr. Solomon is a great guy, good lawyer, good executive. During Rules Committee, he acknowledged that he's never served in a finance function of a company. Executive and legal, yes, never in a finance function. And unfortunately, the requirements of the charter are clear that the position should be filled by somebody specifically with a finance background, not legal or executive looking in on supervising people, but actually doing finance. And that's what the charter says. Just over the course of the summer, we found ourselves in a awkward position about fighting over a fair board appointment due to the mayor's office having missed a window for an appointment. And this is the on steroids version of the mayor's office squandered the summer to try to find somebody while Mr. Crumbo was still here. Apparently, nobody in finance was willing to take it on an interim basis. And I do appreciate Mr. Solomon being willing to step in. Great guy, glad he's doing it. But we're asking the running back to play quarterback, and that's not what the charter calls for. I'm going to respectfully vote no. It creates difficulty for Metro, no doubt, to leave the position empty, but I'm not willing to be flexible on what the requirements of the charter are. And so for that reason, I'll vote no, despite the fact that Mr. Solomon is in fact a great guy.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Mendez. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I rise as well in opposition to Mr. Solomon's appointment. I hear Mr. Solomon is an excellent lawyer. I hear he's done great work on the corporate side for Bridgestone, and we even got a letter from Bridgestone to say so. We also got a letter from the former Mayor Dean and the former Mayor Purcell. So this administration is pulling out all the stops, but I am asking colleagues to read between the lines. This morning, we got that letter that read like a litany of every corporate balance sheet or contract that Mr. Solomon had ever touched in his career. And the administration used a lot of corporate finance terms to confer qualifications for this job. But like Councilman Mendez, I remain unmoved. Mr. Solomon is an attorney with corporate management experience. He is not a municipal finance expert or a corporate finance expert. Now in private legal practice, Mr. Solomon can choose whom he represents and defends. So you should ask yourselves, why would he agree to do legal work for the most notorious firm currently doing business with Metro? A firm that insinuated themselves into multiple corners of our Public Works Department and the Dean administration and stayed there with relative impunity in the Berry, then Briley, and now Cooper administrations. His client still has multiple active and valuable contracts. For example, the paving inspection contract that went from $4 million in procurement to $10 million upon signing, and on and on and on. And despite substantiated findings of their unethical practices and undocumented billing, Mr. Solomon asserted in committee today that Collier had committed, quote, one mistake, and that all Public Works employees would speak highly of them. That is false. Perhaps Mr. Solomon's relationship with Marty Zygas, also formerly of the Dean administration's inner circle and then lobbyist for Collier, who personally billed Metro for thousands of hours in a span of 2 years for liaison services, is the reason. Is it credible that Mr. Collier himself, on the day that he was entertaining multiple Metro employees in a suite at the NCAA tournament, was also out inspecting pavement at his executive rate? These concerns have been all over the news, colleagues, for years now. From Joey Garrison and Yihan Yan, Tennessean investigations, Phil Williams, Carly Gordon at MSMV, who reported on a Public Works employee who was sexually harassed by a Collier executive. No one has truly held Mr. Solomon's client to account. He has done a good job so far making sure of that. And now that there is finally actually an in-progress restitution negotiation between Metro Legal and Saul Solomon on Collier's behalf for Nashville to recoup a tiny fraction of taxpayer dollars bilked by Collier executives, we're going to make their attorney the director of Metro Finance. This appointment is cronyism. Plain and simple. If you want to endorse cronyism and the old way of doing business with special deals for a preferred inside few, then you should vote for Mr. Solomon. But if you want to show the administration that we are not going back to the old way of doing business, that we should care about the perception of the Nashville community and the pleas of our Public Works employees, then you should vote against Mr. Solomon. And Mr. President, I'd like to request a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Roll call vote has been requested. All right. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. I've actually struggled with this most of the day. I think it's unfair to judge a nominee based off of a client that he represents, because I think that his integrity should not necessarily be called into question based off of the perceived misgivings that this particular firm has committed. I think if this was any other period of time, 2, 3, 4 weeks, because I think that I know that is when we are expecting to hear a permanent nominee to be brought forth by the administration. So we're looking at a 3 to 4 or 5 week period. I think if it was any other normal period, verifying funds, signing off on allocations, is really probably not that big of a deal. And we have an incredible staff in the finance department that can handle those things. My concern, honestly, was next week we have a rather large bond issuance that's going before the bond rating agencies. And I know there's a lot of people in this room that don't have experience with that, but it's incredibly important to show stability when you go in front of those firms. And when you don't do that, what can happen is that our bond rating goes down. And when our bond rating goes down, that sticks with us for quite some time, and it increases the cost of borrowing money. And so that's my biggest concern. When I asked Mr. Solomon to speak to that particular event that's planned for next week, I felt pretty confident in his response. I've also asked other people that have worked with him in the past. I've asked people that are in the finance department that would be working with him, and I feel confident and I trust their judgment as well. And so I understand that this is maybe not the perfect nominee, according to some council members, but I do think that he has the ability and the qualifications to serve in this temporary role. I don't think he would want to serve in the permanent role, but he can serve in this temporary role and get us through to the next phase and bring the city forward. So I would encourage you to vote for Mr. Solomon.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've got, I guess, just, I think this and I think Councilmember Mendez has hinted at this. We've had this discussion and this effort simmering for weeks, but the conversation has really only heated up over the weekend, and we got a litany of correspondence from the administration just today as we were preparing to come up here tonight. So I've got a few follow-up questions on that. I guess I understand Mr. Jameson sent a lengthy memo detailing the sort of the qualifications that Councilmember Henderson alluded to. Could I get Metro Legal to affirm that it is their position that Mr. Solomon's credentials are consistent with the charter?
Mr. Cross, Metro Legal.
We do feel that he qualifies, yes.
Okay. Could you elaborate on that? I'm just curious, based on, is there something specific that if you were, if Metro were to find liability here, how would you correlate the experience here with the specific provisions of the charter?
The charter doesn't require that the candidate
Mr. Cross, hold on. Can you hear him? I'm not sure if that microphone.
I can, but.
Loud voice.
You can either come here or we can put you at a desk. Well, it's on. Okay, just move it a little closer.
The charter doesn't require that a candidate have served as the CFO of a corporation, but as the financial head of a corporation. And Mr. Solomon in the Rules Committee went at some length through the responsibilities he has had over his career, both with Bridgestone, with MDHA, in other roles, and we feel that that qualifies under that language.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess maybe really adjacent to that I've heard this suggestion. I just want to be clear on this. The administration is suggesting effectively that he is to be taking on effectively a caretaker role, that this is a very short-term interim provision that we must have in order for signatures and contracts and that kind of thing?
Yes, Councilman, that is correct. Mr. Crumbo indicated his departure from Metro at the end of June, and in the first week of July, the administration began work on outreach to the financial deputies, Metro HR, collaborating with those to sort of define the skill set and what they needed in the next financial director. I would note here briefly as an aside that in its history, the HR department has never been asked to post an available finance position. I believe Shannon Hall has been very complimentary of this administration, being the first in her memory, certainly in my memory, for collaborating with HR to determine the criteria and outreach, and there was outreach to other state and local agencies. Mind if I continue?
You can proceed ahead. Go ahead.
And I can assure, and I have assured individual council members in one-on-one conversations that this will be a tenure that is measured in weeks. The reason I say that, and what is somewhat difficult for us, is that for nearly every candidate that comes to the mayor's office applying for position, a director level position, it is not always the case that they have advised their current employer, and we acknowledge that, we understand that, we respect it, and we assure them of confidentiality so that we get a higher quality of pool of candidates. We've done that here. We want to assure those candidates continued confidentiality, but it is clearly down to the final candidate. Whoever is selected obviously will have to make living arrangements, have to find a place to live in this market, sever their professional current ties, and so forth. So that will be some weeks. I don't know exactly what those period of weeks will be, but we have thrown out the additional possibility, if it adds to comfort level, that Mr. Solomon, and I think would probably gleefully do this, dictate a letter of resignation making clear he is not going to serve beyond, I would ask at least through November, just to make sure we don't know who will be hiring what in what period of weeks they'll need to make arrangements.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the follow-up to that then is, I guess there is at least one, maybe more events that would require us to have an approved finance director that we think would occur in that period of weeks. I've heard of at least one bond issuance.
That is correct. Mr. Cross can speak to this much more eloquently than I can. There are contract provisions that may or may not require a finance director. If there's a bond issuance, that would require a finance director's being in that chair to sign off on.
Councilmember,
Thank
I've
you.
let you go.
Yep, no, appreciate
You want
it.
to come back?
Yeah, I'll listen to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Vercher, you're recognized.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. I just have a few questions. If someone could just provide us, just historically, what has the process been for Director of Finance? And the reason why I ask that question is because some positions in the past have been brought before the Minority Caucus to get our opinion, see if we had any community members that may be interested in these type of positions due to the fact that we are a body on record advocating for equity, not just in this body, but also in the city. So that's my first question. And then my second question was trying to find it in the charter as it relates to secession. In the event Mr. Solomon is voted down today, what is the process for secession as outlined in the charter? Because I don't think the charter would be silent on the city not having a director of finance.
Mr. Jamison.
Wait a minute, Vice Mayor. And then my third question, because I see Mike is down there writing. Has Mr. Solomon been nominated before for the director of finance? I was trying to go back and pull some old historical information, but I got the email. I've been having some issues with my email, so I got the email from Mr. Jamison late today. So if they can just provide that information to the body so that we can make a sound decision, because Section .8.102 in the charter is clear as it states to what a director of finance should be for metropolitan government. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right. Mr. Jamison.
So I can speak to, I began in 2003, and we had Mr. David Manning, and following that, Mr. Rich Riebling. And historically, both the finance director and the director of law have been considered so intrinsic to administrations. It is not a civil service position, and it is apparently unheard of that any administration has even collaborated, not with the Minority Caucus, not even with the Metro HR Department. Now, the eventual transparency comes before this council when that selected nominee from the mayor is brought before this council for a full vetting with his questionnaire, his resume, and your eventual vote. But speaking to my own personal experience, Mr. Manning there was no consultation or outreach. It was a selection by the mayor, and then the council voted. Same with Mr. Riebling, and I believe Ms. Hall from Metro HR will again confirm that no administration in its history, and certainly not in our collective memories, has ever reached out to Metro HR for posting, et cetera. With respect to succession, there is no succession outlined in the charter. Again, several council members have noted that it's a 57-year-old document and may be showing its age, and there are some positions that are causing some difficulties by virtue of their requirements. The health board director has to be a licensed MD, and that made sense in 1963. That was prior to the existence of public health administrators. You couldn't get a degree in public health administration. And now that it's become much more of an administrative position, it's causing somewhat of a problem that it has to be a medical degree. We are obviously delighted with Dr. Wright, but that has been raised with respect to this. But to answer your question, there is no specific succession right. I do not recall that Mr. Solomon has been nominated before for finance director. He is here with us today. I can ask if he could nod. He is nodding no, so I will take that as confirming my recollection. He has not been nominated before.
Councilmember Vercher, get all your questions answered.
I did, Vice Mayor. Thank you so much, Mr. Jameson.
All right. Councilmember Withers.
Thank you so much for recognizing me, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just want to rise in support of Mr. Solomon's nomination tonight. Really want to speak to my role as the council member for MDHA, which is headquartered in District 6, and in particular for the very complex work of the Envision Casey Master Plan implementation, which has been underway for a few years now and has many more years to go. When MDHA Director Jim Harbison tendered his resignation, there was quite a bit of concern as to what would transpire with that much of an absence of an advocate, not just for Casey residents individually, which is most important to me, but also advocacy to the federal government, which is still our partner, our primary partner with regard to MDHA, as well as THDA and bond financing folks for some of the different financing tools that are used to keep Envision Casey moving. So just all this to say that Mr. Solomon, in my estimation, has done a remarkable job of maintaining that momentum, continuing to work with the federal government, with HUD, THDA, the folks from a lot of the different new market tax credit financing. All those things are very, very complicated, and Mr. Solomon has done a wonderful job of continuing that relationship with all of those folks so that we can continue serving our public housing residents in Casey, while also again, maintaining a great deal of respect for Casey residents themselves, and I'm sure for all MDHA residents. During that time, MDHA has also embarked on an executive director position to fill that position. It was very carefully vetted by the MDHA board. We actually had the top 4 finalists came to Nashville, and I was one of over a dozen community members who participated in that interview process with the 4 candidates. We had MDHA residents, MDHA staff that were on board, nonprofit partners such as Martha O'Brien Center. Some of the council members were present. I know Councilmember Hancock took time out of her day to join us as well. It's a very, very transparent process, and I've just been so impressed by Mr. Solomon's work leading MDHA during that time, and it's my hope that the Cooper administration would be similarly engaged in outreach to appoint a new finance director, and I'm hearing great things so far and hope that that will continue. But just really wanted to speak to that experience with MDHA and hope that Mr. Solomon will embark on a similar leadership style within the finance department until we have a formalized finalist for the finance director for Metro Government. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I am continually more and more frustrated with the incompetence of this administration to get nominees nominated on time so that we're not standing here with a revolver held to our head in order to continue the operations of the metropolitan government. I will be voting in favor of Mr. Solomon, the nominee, this evening because, as Councilmember Johnston was alluding to, there are very important financial and bond issues coming up in the next few weeks, and we need someone with that expertise and someone guiding that ship. However, I cannot get over the fact that once again we are waiting until the 11th hour to throw out a nominee that honestly I find it highly disrespectful of the administration to choose someone involved in what I think is a disgraceful situation with a contractor of Metro that we knew that anyone with a brain on the first floor of this courthouse would know would be a media spectacle and cause so much discussion on this council. But yet here we are. And I didn't want to have to get up and speak and say all of this, but I just feel like we've got to rake this administration over the coals if they're going to be this incompetent on things like this. And I'm sick and tired of it. But I will be voting in favor, not because I want to, but because I do feel that it is the best decision that we can make tonight to keep Metro on good financial standing. Thank you, Mr. Viceman.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. I'm going to try not to be too repetitive, but I mean, I think that several council members have made it very clear about the situation that we're being put in. I feel very strongly that this council is tasked, very similar to what we learned in Schoolhouse Rock, that we are to be a check and balance on the administration. And when we have a charter that sets up a strong mayoral government, it puts us in the position of being behind the 8 ball most of the time. This is another prime example of where, I'm not going to get as graphic as the gun to our head, but it does feel that way. We are quite often told if we don't do this, all these horrible things are going to happen and Metro is just going to shut down and cease to exist. And that type of, it is threatening. It's threatening legislation used by numerous administrations, not just this one, to council members, or telling this council that we're the problem. We are the reason that people don't want to serve on boards and commissions or work for Metro government because they have to come before us. I'm not going to apologize for being a check and balance in this government that I was elected to be. And if any administration, past, present, or future, wants to have better numbers of recruiting diversified and qualified candidates for boards and commissions and appointments and positions in Metro government, then how about you include us? Include the council. There's 40 of us. We know this county very well. Bring us to the table to help you make Nashville better. That's what we were elected for and why we should be working together. I say all that, again, like our fellow other council members say, I will be voting yes tonight. Not because I'm thrilled about it or want to. I think this could have been handled in a much better way. We should not have been bombarded after receiving a previous resume of about, I think a grade schooler might have more things on that resume than were put. We got a lot more information today that made me feel a little more comfortable, but it was a lot of information less than 24 hours before the meeting. Again, not acceptable and disrespectful to the council and to the constituents we work for. I'm not going to hold that against Mr. Solomon, but I do want to share with y'all what was said in Rules Committee. I asked him if he will not serve on the procurement board while he is in this position, and he agreed to that. So during this term, as his being interim finance director, he will appoint a designee to do that. I think that gives us a little bit more comfort. But again, I hope we are setting a clear precedent and example to the administration to work with us, to bring us in earlier, and stop treating us like we are the bad guys.
Thank you, Councilmember Murphy. Councilmember Saguaro.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'm not going to repeat all that has been said as well, but I do wanted to point something out or ask a question first. The people that have been in this position as Director of Finance, have they been primarily in financial position or in finance position?
Mr. Jameson.
My experience dates back to two prior directors when I served. Most recent was Mr. Riebling, and forgive me, I'm not going to be able to recite his resume. What I vaguely recall is that Rich had actually began life as a newspaper reporter, then worked for the Fulton administration, then went to law school late in life, and then after that went to a firm that used to be here in town called Stokes and Bartholomew and did bond work. And I think that was his previous experience prior that qualified him for the finance director position. I would look at Mr. Solomon as at least at that level. I mean, Mr. Solomon began his career immediately after law school doing bond work. And then you've seen the recitations today with respect to him being the financial head of companies within Bridgestone, including a purchased company. So I think he compares extremely favorably to the directors of finance. I know we've talked about some of the anachronisms in the charter and how some things are in there that may or may not have been helpful to us in the present. I mentioned the health director, the public works director is supposed to be a licensed civil engineer. That was never the case when I was on the council. We had a director that was not a licensed civil engineer, so he was just referred to as interim. But at the end of the day, if the gravamen of the question is there any doubt in your mind that Mr. Solomon can look at what you need the finance director to deliver? Can he look at the budget and say, what is outgoing and the expenses do not exceed the revenues? Does our debt structure make sense? Is it compliant with policy? There is no doubt in our minds that he absolutely fulfills those mission requirements and has had that experience as the head of a company and ahead of those finances.
Thank you. That's actually helpful because I wanted to know whether we're stretching the charter in order to be able to accommodate Mr. Solomon. And if he's not going to be the first person that is not a direct finance person to hold the position, that answers my question. But I will say that, like everyone has said, I was a little bit hesitant in confirming him at first because of the perception and because of the association with Collier. I think it's important for us to also know that, perception matters. What does an average person think about this? And do people feel there's a conflict? Do people feel? So I had that hesitation. I will say that I've listened to everyone that had to vouch for him and had to say things about him. And I will be voting as a yes tonight. But I do concur with the rest of my colleagues that we need to do a lot sooner, earlier, and also we need to look at that perception part of things as we make decisions when we go forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I will try to be brief. It's not often that Councilmember Soror and I disagree, so this is something a little bit different. I will be voting no on tonight. A few different reasons. Something was brought up. You can't judge an attorney by their clients. But when someone's in private practice, and I'm not an attorney, but if you're in private practice, you absolutely have the autonomy to determine who your clients are. So I don't think that that's an accurate statement. You choose who you do business with. And when you choose to do business with a company with a certain reputation, there are consequences that come with that. The other reason, Councilmember Mendez touched on the financial experience. If we're talking about someone in this position, they need to have solid financial experience, which we have verified. Now, I understand Metro Legal sees it a little bit differently, but we verified that this candidate does not have that. I agree with the sentiments of my colleagues, Councilmember Young, as well as Councilmember Murphy. I agree with their sentiments. We are here to hold people accountable. And when people are coming up for boards and commissions, sometimes we have these uncomfortable conversations, but we're not going to stop holding people accountable because that is why we were elected. That is why our constituents put us here, to hold people accountable. And with regards to Councilmember Murphy talking about those boards and commissions, we have plenty of nonprofits in this city that would love to partner with Metro government to help get community members elected to our boards and commissions. So I would mirror what Councilmember Murphy said and ask that our administration continues or deepens their relationship with these community organizations to make sure that we're putting forth qualified, diverse candidates. Actions have consequences. The biggest frustration with this was brought up by Councilmember Young. We keep being put in situations where we have to be rushed to make a decision. The information needs to come to us in a timely manner. We shouldn't be put in a position where we are having to make a last-minute decision, and if we vote against something, the city's gonna burn down, because it's our fault that we didn't vote for someone. We have to get this information in a timely fashion. And if that means that the administration needs to do something differently with how they're filling these positions, then so be it. But for tonight, I'm standing on the fact that I am a no, and I encourage my colleagues, if you want to see something change at some point, we're going to have to put our foots down and say that we want to see the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Mendez, you're next. You've got about 4 people behind you that have not spoken yet. I can come to you, or I can wait and come back to you. I have the ability to just go ahead and call on you, so let me call on you, and then I'll keep going, okay?
All right, just 2 things real quick. Respectfully, I feel bad for Mr. Jameson and the position he's got tonight trying to make this stick. The argument is overstated. There's several things that are overstated, but most notably, the idea that Mr. Solomon is more qualified than Rich Riebling would sort of imply that Carl Dean screwed up, and he should have just had Mr. Solomon run finance and send Rich over to legal. It just, the argument is very attenuated and overstated, and I think that is telling. Secondly, listen, I am sympathetic to the folks who are saying that they're going to vote yes because it feels like there's no other choice. But the reality is that holding to our guns that we're going to honor what the charter says, the requirements in the charter, would send the mayor back to the drawing board. And if it's so mission critical that we have somebody in the position, we'd get a qualified candidate that fully meets the requirements in the charter by the time we get to the next meeting. And so there are people in finance that could do the job. I'm not sure why they're not the interim. Anyway, those are the 2 points. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So most of what's on my mind has been said. However, I would like to ask a couple of questions. And first, I'd like to state that it was not very many weeks ago that this administration actually berated a council member for not bringing something to the administration in advance of presenting it on the floor. The things are opposite right now, right? So I'm not suggesting that we need to berate somebody just by virtue of berating them, but I do think that if the partnership is desired, then the partnership needs to be presented. I do have some questions in that we're talking about qualifications within the charter. Has this administration, I guess this is, well, Vice Mayor, I'll let you direct this, probably to the administration. Has this administration proposed any changes to the charter with regards to qualifications of positions as outlined in the charter?
Mr. Jameson.
So sorry. The short answer is yes, we have a charter amendment likelihood of in the spring. Now, this was prompted by the somewhat infamous tax proposal that For Good Government has proposed, and that led to various charter proposals. We have a limit on the number of times that amendments can be made to the charter within any given term. But we are looking at early spring for a variety of different proposals that include not just the qualifications for various director positions, including, as I mentioned, the medical director and public works director, a variety of other requests that I have listed. The issue that we'll always have is that the electorate has a certain, and I say this with enormous respect for the electorate, they have a certain level of attention. And if you have 50 charter changes, they'll read a certain number and then they'll walk out. And so what has hampered charter amendments for years is you get a certain number of bites at the apple. So I can't tell you this is the #1 priority. It almost certainly is not. But that has been discussed and is on the list with several other proposed changes.
So this is the first I've heard of that. So I've served for 2 years and I've not heard of any concerns about qualifications of positions until tonight. So I think it's important that if that's what we're looking at, if that's of concern to this administration or to anybody else, that is something that we're working on together rather than having a contentious relationship or being adversarial with each other. Finally, I just want to say we've had 90 days to look at this, and 11 days ago is when we found out the administration's pick. I know people who have been married for more than 30 years who were married within 90 days of meeting each other. We could have done better. We could have done better, and we should have done better. We should not be putting our city in a position. Sorry, Vice Mayor. We should not be putting our city in a position where our credit is being influenced because of lack of preparation. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Totally understood. I just want to assure you, I'm sorry.
I will be voting against this candidate. I want to call that out. And I really, really am frustrated with the lack of partnership from this administration. If you want partnership from us, you need to give it in return. Thank you, Vice Mayor. That's all.
All right, thank you, Councilmember.
And totally understood, and we do desire that partnership. I do want to reassure council members, this was not a decision made 11 days ago and then foisted on the council. If you talk to the HR department, specifically Director Hall, she will tell you that the average period of time throughout her tenure for a director appointment averages, believe it's 4 months. We are at about the halfway point there, so we're somewhat ahead of the game to be coming to this final conclusion. We did reach out to each of the deputies, each of the finance deputies within the department. Now, we have one that began 30 days ago. I don't believe I've even met her yet, so I think there was not a qualification consideration there. The others had concerns that I can only tell council members were deeply personal, that involved family, that involved health, and we can't be too candid about their particular decisions, but they all were each solicited. This was not thrown out at the last minute because that was how we just decided to hold our cards to the vest. We did try. We then did realize that we had a potential bond signature requirement, and here we are. Mr. Solomon has stepped up in that circumstance, as he has in the past. We believe he's eminently qualified by the credentials we submitted. He is also extremely ethically qualified. If you'll check with the Board of Professional Responsibility, there has been no one that has insinuated that there is anything improper in his representation of his clients, just that he does a good job. Maybe to some frustration, and I understand the frustration with particular clients, but in terms of his ethical compliance, it is impeccable.
Okay. Councilmember Pulley, you're recognized.
Previous question.
Councilmember Pulley has called the previous question. We're not voting on the nomination. We're just voting on the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. So we are now on the vote. It's a, Madam Clerk, we're going to do it by roll call. You tell me when you're ready. So what we're doing is the motion was made to and properly seconded to approve the appointment of Saul Solomon to serve as interim finance director. That's the motion. We are voting on that. If you are in favor of the appointment of Mr. Solomon, you will vote yes. If you're against the appointment, you would vote no. Madam Clerk, open the machines. Okay. Madam Clerk, close the machine, take the vote. It required 21 to pass for the nomination, 24 ayes, 10 noes, 2 abstentions. Mr. Solomon, you are approved as the interim finance director. Okay. All right, we're now on the election of to fill the vacancy of the unexpired term of Ms. Ginger Hauser for the Industrial Development Bond. Councilmember Johnston, I'm going to go back to you for a report from the Rules Committee.
Thank you. We considered Mr. Jeff Carr, Mr. Joshua Haston, and Mr. Mark Wright to fill the vacancy of the unexpired term of Ms. Ginger Hauser for a term expiring September 19th, 2023. We voted 6 in favor, 0 against, and I would move their approval.
Okay, so all three are eligible to be considered tonight. Again, Jeff Carr, nominated by Councilmember Bradford, Joshua Haston, nominated by Councilmember Withers, and Mark Wright, nominated by Councilmember O'Connell. Again, this is to fill one vacancy on the Industrial Development Board. I believe we have 3 more coming, just to make sure that you remember that. This is done by Rule 50. We're going to be doing the same thing. As you can see, Ms. Godin and Mr. Kyle are out passing paper ballots. If you would, you can only vote for one. If you will vote for one and then sign the ballot and then put in which district or if you're an at-large. After you voted, raise your hand. We'll come get the ballot.
Okay.
All right. Council members, Director Zeitlin is going to read out the member and the person that they voted for.
Mendez, right. Hurt, right. Suara, right. Hall, Carr. Gamble, right. Swope, Carr. Parker, right. Withers, Haston. Benedict, right. Van Rees, Haston. Hancock, right. Young, right. Hager, right. Evans, right. Bradford, Carr. Roten, right. Syracuse, right. Welch, right. Cash, right. O'Connell, right. Roberts, right. Taylor, right. Hauser, right. Sorry. Druffel, Carr. Murphy, right. Pulley, Haston. Johnston, Haston. Nash, Carr. Bircher, Carr. Porterfield, right. Sepulveda, right. Rutherford, right. Stiles, right. Lee, right. Henderson, right. Rosenberg, right.
All right, the vote is 26 for Mark Wright, 6 votes for Mr. Carr, and 4 votes for Mr. Haston. So Mark Wright is selected to the Industrial Development Board. Mr. Wright, you back there? There you are. Congratulations, and again, you can stay for the rest of the meeting, or your business is finished. All right, we are now ready to vote on the pro tem. This is a vote by the council on the election of council president pro tem for a 1-year term. I want to thank Councilmember Amended for serving in the last year. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it. I will take. I think I know that we have 2 people running, but I got to make sure. So I'm going to take nominations from the floor just to make sure I've got all the right candidates. If you're interested in running for a pro tem, we're not looking for speeches. I just need to make sure I know who all the candidates are. All right? Councilmember Roberts, you're recognized.
I would like to nominate Councilman Dave Rosenberg.
Okay, so Councilmember Dave Rosenberg is nominated. And Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to nominate Council Lady Tanaka Vircher.
Okay, Councilmember Tanaka Vircher is also nominated. Councilmember Pulley. Hold on. Whoop. There we go.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I move to close nominations.
All right. Councilmember Pulley has moved to close nominations. Properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the ability to close nominations say aye. Opposed, no. Nominations are closed. Okay, so we don't take speeches on this one. I think we just go forth and vote. We have 2 people running for pro tem. This is for a term of service that will expire actually on August the 31st of 2022. All right. Madam Clerk, are we passing out ballots again? Okay. We're passing out paper ballots again. All right. So if you want to vote for Councilmember Rosenberg, you would put his name on there. If you want to vote for Councilmember Vircher, you'd put her name on there.
Thank you.
All right, all votes are in? Oh, wait a minute, we've got one out.
Who's got it?
Councilmember Hager?
Huh?
I think Councilmember Hager typically votes for himself on these, so we could, yeah, Munster.
No. I mean, if he misses the vote, he misses the vote. I mean, you don't have to wait for him. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to. It's like keeping the machine open.
We can't find Councilmember Hager. We are ready to, I'm looking at the two candidates. You all, we good to go? Councilmember Vercher? We can't find Councilmember Hager, so we can go ahead and start counting the vote. You want me to wait?
I mean, he's not present. I understand, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, if they can't find him, I mean, if he's gone out to smoke or whatever, I don't know if it's worth, I don't know if it's worth waiting.
Okay, we're gonna give it. Well, I've got a council member who is here, and I'm just waiting to give him the chance. If we can find him, we'd pull him in usually. There he is. So, council member, should be a piece of paper on your desk. We're voting for pro tem between Councilmember Rosenberg and Councilmember Vercher. Okay, if we can go get the ballot, Danielle. Okay. All right, Director Zeitlin?
All right.
Yeah, I've got you on.
Mendez, Rosenberg. Hurt, Vercher. Suara, Rosenberg. Hall, Vercher. Gamble, Rosenberg. Swope, Vercher. Parker, Rosenberg. Withers, Vercher. Benedict, Rosenberg. Van Rees, Rosenberg. Hancock, Vercher. Young, Rosenberg. Hager, Vercher. Evans, Rosenberg. Bradford, Rosenberg. Roten, Rosenberg. Syracuse, Rosenberg. Welch, Rosenberg. Cash, Rosenberg. O'Connell, Rosenberg. Roberts, Rosenberg. Taylor, Rosenberg. Hauser, Rosenberg. Druffel, Vercher. Murphy, Rosenberg. Pulley, Vercher. Johnston, Vercher. Nash, Vercher. Vercher, Vercher. Porterfield, Rosenberg. Sepulveda, Rosenberg. Rutherford, Rosenberg. Stiles, Rosenberg. Lee, Vercher. Henderson, Rosenberg. Rosenberg, Rosenberg. 24 to 12? Yeah.
The vote is Councilmember Rosenberg 24, Councilmember Vercher 12. Congratulations, Councilmember Rosenberg. All right, we are now ready to move on to proposed rules amendments, which is also a part of, I think we've got everything done. We have a set of rules that are on the desk by Councilmember Johnston, so I'm going to go to her first. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. So, yes, we have the proposed committee structure that we all came up with. We had several meetings. It's been over the course of several months. There's been many council members that have added their 2 cents. And we've had as of late, two very productive special committee meetings where we really hashed out a lot of different things. We can do this multiple ways and we could talk about it ad nauseum. I think anything can be argued, but I do think that what we came up with is something that is more reflective of our current government in 2021 and less of how it was in 1963. And I'm hoping that it does help with some efficiencies, but for the most part, just more reflective of who we are today and how we're governing. So budget and finance, the 11, we go from 14 standing to 11 committees that are budget and finance, government operations and regulations. We have a choice of public facilities and culture or arts, culture, and public facilities. We'll discuss that in a moment. Human services, public health and safety, transportation and infrastructure, planning and zoning, education, affordable housing, rules, confirmations, and public elections, and finally, charter revision. So where we left the meeting was we have to figure out what do we want to call the number 3 committee, which is either public facilities and culture or arts, culture, and public facilities. The argument for public facilities and culture is that there are more public facilities that are reflected and discussed in this particular committee than culture, arts, or entertainment. The other argument is that arts has consistently taken a back seat, and it is obviously very important. And so dropping arts from that was something that some people objected to. So I don't know what our procedure is here. Do we want to just take a vote on either of those two, or open up the discussion for the 2 different committees, or just go ahead and take the vote? The committee voted, I'll say this, the committee voted 1 for public facilities and culture, 3 for arts, culture, and public facilities, and 2 weren't voting.
Director Zeitlin, you got any ideas on this one?
So I would definitely pick one of the options before voting on the rules changes generally. I think if you want to go with what the rules committee selected, which was, if you could, it was...
Yeah, 3 to 1 and 2 not voting voted for arts, culture, and public facilities.
So why don't we go with that?
Okay.
And then, so what you would do is you're proposing a change to the rules with that name in it?
Correct, unless the body wants to have a discussion about it. I don't. Nobody wants. Everybody's tired. So yeah, so we'll just go with what the committee went with. Everyone did have the opportunity to come to Rules Committee and voice their opinion, and we did really, of course, it was on the heels of a lot of other stuff. So, but we didn't really have much discussion about it. So I will move to have the name Arts, Culture, and Public Facilities as the number 3 committee, and I would move the approval of this particular committee structure, and thank everyone for all of their collaborative effort.
Okay, so I got a motion to adopt, properly seconded. I've got people in the queue. Councilmember Parker, you were first. There you go.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and thanks to Councilmember Johnston and everybody else who attended those meetings and worked on this. I wasn't able to attend those, but I have had the chance to review a lot of it. I was initially skeptical about this proposal, but kind of following along with the rationale of the group and how we got to, where we're at. I also am very appreciative that affordable housing remains a standing committee. that was very important to me in this process. So I appreciate that. That committee does some educational things and some stuff with interacting with departments that I think is really important, and keeping that space, as a standing committee is really important. So I'll be voting in the affirmative on this proposed committee structure, and just want to thank all y'all for all the work you did on this.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Henderson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to amend the motion in something that I think will be collegial and helpful, perhaps. I had thought that we could do public facilities, arts, and culture. Just respectfully, the committee, look at everything that's under that committee, colleagues. The first word in that committee name cannot be arts. That does not make sense because, again, there are a lot of things under that umbrella, including libraries, parks, greenways, public entertainment facilities, the fair, the farmers market, open space, and the first word in that committee is going to be arts. I just think that invites confusion, but I respect and appreciate Council Lady Stiles' point about arts, and our own Council Lady Van Reese, now chair of Parks, Libraries, and Arts Committee, did bring that last term, I believe, Council Lady Van Reese, and we all absolutely embraced that and wanted to show our support for the arts. So just respectfully, I would ask if we could just amend it. We keep the word arts in there per the vote, but it just changes the order. So I would like to suggest an amendment that has public facilities, arts, and culture, please.
All right, so Councilmember Henderson is moving an amendment to the proposal to amend the rules. The amendment would be to change the name of what's currently in the proposed rules by Councilmember Johnston to Public Facilities, Arts, and Culture. And that's, let me make sure I've got this right, Director Zeitlin. Right now under the rules, it's Arts,
Culture,
and Public Facilities. Okay. So we're just switching the order of the names. Okay, so Councilmember Van Reese is seconding the amendment. Okay. All right, so I've got people in the queue. Does anybody want to talk about the proposed amendment? Councilmember Young, Councilmember Mendez, Councilmember Hancock. We're on a proposed amendment to the amendment to the rules. Anybody want to talk about the proposed change in the name? Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I will say this respectfully. I completely understand where you're coming from, Councilmember Henderson. We did already have a lengthy conversation in regards to this name. We already talked about it in rules. We voted on it already. And I think at this point, we are ad nauseum talking about the names of the different committees. I am not for this amendment, and let us just move forward as is. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Anybody else want to talk about the proposed name change amendment? All right, so let's make sure we know where we are. Councilmember Johnston has proposed changes to the rule. It's an amendment to the rules. It has been seconded. Under that current proposed rules change, the committee would be called Arts, Culture, and Public Facilities. Councilmember Henderson has moved to amend the name to say Public Facilities, Arts, and Culture. That was seconded. Okay. We are now ready to vote on that proposed change. Anybody else want to talk about it before we vote? The name change or the whole? No, just the name change, just the amendment. It's a little different because it would be an amendment to the bill, but this is just the rule. So it's an amendment kind of to an amendment.
Right.
Okay. So the amendment, again, all we're voting on right now is the proposed language change to that. I think it's the third committee. Okay. Right now, the proposal is to call it Arts, Culture, and Public Facilities. Councilmember Henderson has moved to change it to Public Facilities, Arts, and Culture. Okay? Any other questions? Just on that one change. That's what we're voting on. All those in favor of the change say aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No.
The ayes have it. Okay? So the change is made. So now we're back on the proposed amendments to the rules with an amendment to it. And then we'll go back to discussions. Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized.
So I am one of the members of council that did attend some of those meetings, the 31st in particular. And at the meeting on the 31st, we discussed moving environment from public facilities to public health. And I gave what I like to think of as many excellent points, which I'd be glad to reiterate if everyone wants to stay here longer. And there was an agreement to do so.
I'm not sure if we have that much time. Yeah.
There was an agreement to move that to public health, but now it's listed under transportation and infrastructure. So I'm confused as to why that happened. Could we ask our legal counsel why?
Did you get the question?
I guess I'm.
Councilmember
I don't
Johnston,
have
do you
that
understand the question?
Information in front of me. That.
I'm looking for Councilmember Johnston. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
So in my notes, and I went over it, I think at least 3 times afterwards, when I detailed out what the different committees were going to be handling, and I have it written down that transportation was going to cover traffic, parking, and transportation, water, stormwater, solid waste, environment, and sustainability. So I don't know if it was just, I don't know. And then Hannah, I know, went back because I said, make sure that this is what I have is correct. And she said she went back to the actual video of the meeting and she made one correction to mine, but it had nothing to do with this. So I think this is what we agreed on. I feel pretty confident in that, but
So I actually went back to the video today as well, and I heard my sustainability speech and that sustainability is everywhere, and yes, it is. But there's a bill that's coming up today, later on this evening, maybe tomorrow morning, for all I know, that covers our health, and it's something that is often undertaken by the Department of Health. We also have environmental problems like air pollution that are also under the purview of the Department of Health. In my district, and many others, we have things like septic tanks, which is certainly an environmental issue, and that's under the Department of Health. Everything that has to do with the environment is under the Department of Health, so I feel strongly that the environment should go under public health and safety. I think sustainability can be anywhere and everywhere, and I do not mind, but health in particular, the environment affects our health always. Like, talk about redlining in the past and all the way to today, that's our health. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. So, Councilmember, are you proposing a change?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to propose moving environment to public health and safety. Thank you.
So that's not a part of the official rule change, I guess, just, to be clear, that's just a part of how it was structured in discussion. The rule change that's before you is what appeared in the amendments packet. So there's really nothing to amend. If that makes sense.
So then when we type it all up next time, can we list environment under public health? Because all of those things would need to be considered by the health department, and they would need to be in those meetings. I know that you don't want to talk anymore.
No, so I think, Councilmember, what happens is you have the names of the committees, and then I think the group tried to figure out what particularly would fall under those groupings. It essentially becomes a discussion that any legislation that's filed has to be sort of looked at by the vice mayor and by the clerk's office to figure out which committee it goes to. I think if you're concerned about environment, it might be one of those things where I think we could take that into consideration, but I know that what you all were trying to do was list them specifically under each category.
Correct.
But that's not a part of the formal
Right.
rule.
That doesn't actually appear in the rules change. So I'm not sure how we would amend it or vote on it.
I think we could discuss it at some point, but it's not necessarily something I believe you would amend at this point. Okay, Councilmember Johnston, I'm going to get to people in the queue, but let me go back to you to make sure we figure this one out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's something, first of all, I think that's a particular topic that would have a dual referral anyway. But yes, it has nothing to do with the actual rule change where we're naming the committees. But I do remember at the end, because it was Councilman Bradford's rules structure where he has health and public safety, and we all agreed that public health and safety with what he described is what we were going to go with. So I get the confusion, honestly, because we went back and forth several times with different things and we were sort of all over the place. But I do think it is something that we could work out later because it doesn't have anything to do with the name of a committee. So again, I would move the approval.
All right. So Councilmember Hancock, you know where you are. Because it's not necessarily a part of the process. We just want to stop talking about it. Okay. Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized. Councilmember Mendez has called the question on the entire set of rules. Okay? So it's a previous question. We're not voting on the rules yet. We're just voting on the previous question. All those in favor of the previous question say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. All right, so we are voting on Councilmember Johnston's proposed rules change as amended by Councilmember Henderson. We'll try this. Well, it needs 27 votes, so I think I need to go on the board. Madam Clerk? Ready? All right, so listen up. So we are voting on a proposed rules change. This is going to take the committee numbers from 14 to 11. We had the one amendment by Councilmember Henderson that changed the name of the third committee. In order to approve this body, you have to have 27 votes on the board, okay? So if you want the rules changed, you would vote aye. If you are against them, you'd vote no. Madam Clerk, open up the machines. Councilmember Porterfield, do you want to vote? Madam Clerk, everything in? Okay, close the machines, take the vote. So the vote is 29 ayes, 4 noes, 1 abstention. The rules are changed. All right, so they do not go in effect for 30 days. All right, so congratulations, Councilmember Johnston, and the work by the committee. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Do I need to suspend the rules for it to go into effect before the 30 days, or are you comfortable with doing committee assignments then? I don't know.
Yeah, so Councilmember Johnston, what we're talking about up here is the 30 days. So the first meeting in October is October the 5th. So if you want to make it to October 1st, that would put us on the chance where I could go ahead and make the picks and get the committee squared away by the end of this month, and they could start the first meeting in October. So you would need to move to suspend the rules to make this rule effective by the end of this month.
Okay, I would like to suspend the rules, please.
Okay, does anybody have objection to the suspension of the rules? Okay, so everybody's good with it? So the rules were suspended. Do we need to take a vote on it? All right, so we're going to, for purposes of what we're doing, we're not going to vote. The rules are suspended so that the rules will go into effect on the end of this month, September 30th, with the new committees starting October the 1st. Okay? Councilmember Bradford, Do you wish to proceed ahead? No? Okay, so he had a second proposed rule change. Councilmember Johnston, there is one other proposed rule change in the, I don't know if it's in the packet, was sent out late. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
We actually, we talked about it, but we did not take a vote. It was already past 6:30, and so I just mentioned that he had something sort of, I didn't think he was going to move it if the rules change, the original rules change passed. It was just because we don't have Public Works anymore, he was changing Public Works. Oh, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Johnston, this is Rule 14.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm lost. Okay, so that is, I don't even know if I need to move that anymore because it was in the case that we did not confirm the interim director. It was better than nothing. I don't know that it helped with the charter, but it did help with Rule 14 in that it allowed a deputy director to sign off on allocations and verification of funds if needed when the director, finance director, was not named. So it was sort of in this weird, we don't have anybody, but we still need to allocate funds. And so the purpose of it was just to have some sort of guidance in any way. But we've done that now, so I don't, y'all tell me if you.
Do you want to talk?
I would defer to, I don't know.
So there is the possibility, because there's a question about trying to make sure that everybody has seen it, to discuss it tonight, let it sit over on the desk and pick it back up at the next meeting.
That's fine.
So the idea would be just to let Director Zeitlin just reference what it is, make sure everybody has a written copy of it, and then it can be taken up at the next meeting. Looking for yeses. Everybody seems to be okay. Director Zeitlin, could you give us a quick rundown on what that rule change would be?
So this changes Rule 14, hang on one second, which is the certification by the Director of Finance on funds availability. So legislation that appropriates or that requires the appropriation or expenditure of funds is signed by the Director of Finance. The rule does not give an option for anyone else to sign the legislation. So this proposed rule change would add the language, or if the position of the Director of Finance is vacant, a divisional director of the Finance Department is allowed to sign.
Okay, so if everybody's comfortable with that, you can check your email. The copy of the proposed rules change is listed there. We will take it up for consideration at the next meeting, and then the council can determine what it would like to do with that. Okay? Any questions regarding where we are? Sounds good. We are finally ready to actually get to bills on public hearing. It's 8:20. We're ready to go. All right, so we're now ready for bills on public hearing. I will call up the bills one at a time. Refer to the sponsor unless the sponsor moves to defer the public hearing. Sponsor will call for a public hearing. Ask for a show of hands of those who are in favor of the bill. Ask for a show of hands for those who are in opposition to the bill. If anyone in favor of the measure wishes to speak, I ask you to come forward, find the microphone, introduce yourself, and then you'll have 2 minutes in which to speak. Then ask if anyone opposed wishes to speak. After that process, I will close the public hearing, refer back to the sponsor. All right, we are ready for the first bill up. It is BL 2020-479 by Councilmember O'Connell and Murphy. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code by changing from MUN, MUNA, MULA, MUG, OR 20 CS and CF to MUNNS, MUNANS, MULANS, MUGNS, OR 20 NS, CS NS, and CFNS zoning for various properties located between Roselle Parks Boulevard and 2nd Avenue North from Hume Street south to Jefferson Street, located within the Germantown Historic Preservation District overlay. Councilmember O'Connell, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. We've got sort of an alternative approach that we've worked out with, so I'd like to actually defer this public hearing to November, please.
Okay, so the move is to defer the public hearing until the first meeting in November. That's the motion. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral say aye. Opposed, no. This bill is deferred, the public hearing is deferred to the first meeting in November. so it will not be heard tonight if anybody's here on that one. Item number 2, Bill 2025-04 by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance amending Chapter 17.36 and 17.40 of the Metropolitan Code pertaining to creating an owner-occupied short-term or rental overlay district. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized on that one.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a companion to the previous bill, so I'd like to track it. So I'd like to move to first meeting in November, please.
Okay, so the motion is to defer to the first meeting in November. No public hearing tonight. The motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. That bill is also deferred to the first meeting in November. Item number 3, Bill 2021-621. This is on page 4 of the calendar. Councilmember Murphy, Allen, O'Connell, and Bradford. Ordinance amending section 17.40.720 and 17.40.730 of the Metropolitan Code require additional public notice regarding applications for permits from the Historic Zoning Commission. Councilmember Murphy is not in the chamber. Councilmember O'Connell, you're the next one there. Do you know what we plan to do with this one?
I do not, actually. So
why don't we, if you want, we'll just move it down.
Yeah, we can move it to the hill.
We'll move it to the hill of the calendar. Okay. Okay. We're on item number 4, BL 2021-726, Glover and Swope, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws pertaining to LED message boards and digital display signs. Councilmember Glover, Councilmember Swope, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to open the public hearing.
Okay. So the reason we were checking, the Planning Commission voted 6-0 for an indefinite deferral. Ms. Milligan?
Hi, yes, the Planning Commission did vote to indefinitely defer, and that was at the request of Councilmember Glover.
Okay. So, Councilmember Swope, proceed with the public hearing.
Steve requested that?
Yes, he requested an indefinite deferral at the Planning Commission to allow for additional community conversation.
Then I would respect Councilman Glover's wishes and ask for a indefinite deferral.
Okay. So the motion is to defer indefinitely, which means no public hearing on this bill tonight. Motion to defer indefinitely, have a proper second. Any discussion on the motion to defer? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to defer indefinitely say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is deferred indefinitely. Thank you, Councilmember Swope. We're on BL 2021-766 by Councilmember Porterfield. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing AR2A to SP zoning on property located at 3156 Anderson Road. Permit 22 multifamily residential units. Councilmember Porterfield, you are recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to move the amendment.
All right. So are we going to have a public hearing on this one tonight?
No, sir. I'm going to motion to defer the
Okay.
public hearing to the first meeting in October.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we're doing is Councilmember Porterfield has an amendment she'd like to get on the bill, and then she's going to defer the public hearing. All right. So, Councilmember Porterfield has moved an amendment, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I will actually defer to either Director Zeitlin or Matthew to explain this, since this will impact multiple pieces of legislation tonight by my colleagues.
Sure.
All right. Director Zeitlin, explanation of the amendment.
Sure. So this amendment adds 2 additional conditions, basically to assist in compliance with recent changes to state law that went into effect on September 1st. So the change in state law is now that the Metro Council cannot prohibit a certain specific type of construction material. So there will be a few bills tonight that are having an amendment that helps it to comply with state law. Basically, construction materials will need to be voted on. Any restrictions to construction materials will need to be voted on by a separate ordinance. So this will now get a companion bill, which is on first reading, and this is going to be deferred so the companion bill can track alongside the legislation.
Okay. Councilmember Porterfield, back to you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would move to defer this to the first meeting in October.
Okay, let's get the amendment on first.
Okay, I would
Okay.
like to move the amendment.
Okay,
please.
so Councilmember Porterfield has moved the amendment, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, we're voting on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. So now you're on BL 2021-766 as amended. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to move to defer to the first meeting in October.
Okay, so the motion is to defer the public hearing to the first meeting in October. Properly seconded. Any discussion on that one? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to defer, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion is adopted. We're on item number 6. This is on page 6. This is BL 2021-810 by Councilmember Van Rees. Ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code by changing from RS10 to SV zoning for properties located at 301 Ben Allen Road and Ben Allen Road unnumbered, permit 245 multifamily residential units. Councilmember Van Rees, you are recognized.
Yes, I'd like to defer this public hearing to the first meeting in October so that it can catch up with item number 75. Do I need to offer an amendment?
Councilmember Van Rees, you have a substantive ordinance in the package. We're thinking that it might be a good idea to go ahead and get the substitute ordinance on.
Right.
And then you can defer your public hearing.
Okay, I move to put the substitute ordinance onto item 810.
Yeah. Okay. So Councilmember Van Rees has moved the substitute ordinance onto BL 2021-810, properly seconded. Explanation of the substitute ordinance, or do you want Director Zeitlin to tell you?
Sure, you can say it now and then we'll repeat it again later.
Okay, that sounds good.
This adds the planning conditions that also include the fix in order to comply with the state law and track with the companion bill. I might defer any.
Thank you. And just for amount of clarity, the project still plans to use all the materials they promised to use, and we just can't make them do it. So with that, I move the substitute.
Okay. So Councilman Van Rees has moved the substitute ordinance, properly seconded. Any discussion on the substitute ordinance? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no.
And with that substitute now on, I would defer to the public hearing until the first meeting in October.
All right, so BL 2021-810 as substituted, Councilmember Van Rees has moved to defer the public hearing until when?
October.
The first meeting in October, okay?
Thank you.
That's the motion, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The motion is passed. We're on BL 2021-827 by Councilmember Hauser and Rosenberg. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from SP to RS 80. Zoning for properties located at 8733 and 8811 Newsom Station Road, approximately 1,700 feet northwest of Coley Davis Road, zoned SP. It's 131.06 acres. Councilmember Hauser, you're recognized.
We are going to move this to the first meeting in October, please.
All right, so Councilmember Hauser wants to defer the public hearing until the first meeting, in October?
In October.
First meeting in October. Okay, properly seconded. Any questions on the deferral? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes. We're on page 7. This is item number 8, BL 2021-831. Councilmember O'Connell, Bradford, and Parker. Ordinance amending sections 6.28.030, 17.04.060, and 17.20.030 of the Metropolitan Code to amend the definition of short-term rental property, non-owner occupied, and to amend parking requirements related to short-term rental property, not owner occupied. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Still working with Metro Codes on a couple of the logistics of this and would like to defer to the October public hearing, please.
Okay, so the motion is to defer the public hearing to the first meeting in October. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, the first meeting in October, say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. BL 2021-840 by Councilmember Taylor. This is an ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from RS5 to R6A zoning on property located at 706 26th Avenue North, approximately 175 feet north of Clifton Avenue. It's 0.22 acres. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
I'd like to open the public hearing.
So our first public hearing, I think, of the night. Declare the public hearing open. Show of hands of those who are here in favor of the measure. Show of hands of those who are here in opposition to the measure. Councilmember Taylor, I didn't see anybody on either side. Declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to move for approval.
Okay, Councilmember Taylor has moved for approval on second reading of BL 2021-840, properly seconded. Any discussion on the measure? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. We're voting on BL 2021-840. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. BL 2021-844, this is item number 10 by Councilmember Parker. Ordinance to amend section 17.40.720 of the Metropolitan Code, requiring notice by mail to the address of a property in certain cases. Councilmember Parker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So I've got want to defer the public hearing, but I do want to apply a substitute on this tonight. What's the correct order to do that in?
All right, so go ahead and move the substitute order now.
I'd like to move the substitute, please.
Okay, so Councilmember Parker has moved the substitute, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the substitute.
So this bill is to sort of increase notice to tenants of properties that are being rezoned, and we've been going back and forth between myself, staff, and planning to make sure that we get this right so that it's not going to be burdensome on planning staffers and that it's going to accomplish the goal that we're looking for. So this substitute incorporates some feedback we got from planning, and we'd like to go ahead and just put that on, and we're going to defer it to the first meeting in October once we get this substitute on there. So I'll just renew my motion to apply the substitute.
Okay, so Councilmember Parker has moved to the substitute on to BL 2021-844. It's been properly seconded. Any discussion on the substitute? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. All those in favor of the substitute say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Substitute is adopted. You're on your bill as substituted.
Thank you. I'd like to defer this to the first meeting in October.
Okay. So the motion is to defer to the first meeting in October, properly seconded. Any discussion on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferral motion say aye. Opposed, no. Deferral motion passes. All right. Thank you, Councilmember Parker. We're on page 8. This is items number 11. I think we can take number 12 at the same time. BL 2021-853 and 854, both by Councilmember Van Rees. 853 is an ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying a historic landmark overlay district. Property located at 435 Old Hickory Boulevard, southeast corner of Donna Drive and Old Hickory Boulevard. Zone RS20, it's 1.44 acres. And then BL 2021-854, ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying a neighborhood landmark overlay district to property located at 435 Old Hickory Boulevard at southeast corner of Donna Drive and Old Hickory Boulevard, zone RS 21.44 acres, to permit small event and short-term rentals. Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized on both those measures.
Hello? Oh. Yes, I believe we have to do the same thing again and offer the substitute on this as well? No? Okay.
No substitute. We have no. I don't think we have a substitute on this one.
Thank you. Then I would
try
like
to offer one.
No,
but
that's
we don't
okay.
have one.
I need this to catch up with the other legislation as well, so I will defer until the first meeting in October, please.
All right. So the motion is to defer to the first meeting in October, both 2021-853 and 854, properly seconded. Any discussion on those deferrals? Seeing none, all those in favor of the deferrals of 853 and 854 say aye. Opposed, no. Both bills are deferred to the first meeting in October. Item number 13, BL 2021-855 by Councilmember Benedict. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying a contextual overlay district to various properties located along a portion of Preston Drive, Sheridan Road, and Harwood Drive, approximately 200 feet south of Porter Drive, zone R10, 24.17 acres. Councilmember Benedict, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to open the public hearing, please.
Okay. So Councilmember Benedict has moved to open the public hearing, declare it open. Show of hands of those who are here in favor of this measure. Okay, see some hands in the back. Show of hands of those who are here in opposition to this measure. I don't see anybody in opposition. Those in favor wish to speak? Anybody want to talk? You're welcome to come on up. Just come on up. I'll need your name, address, and then you'll have 2 minutes in which to speak.
Hello, my name is Bob Allen. I've lived in Nashville for 35 years, and 25 of those have been at my current address on Harwood Drive. I've seen slow growth and development in that neighborhood up until the last 5 years or so. And a lot of that new development has been out of scale and character to the existing neighborhood. And while we welcome our new neighbors and their youth vigor, their children and their animal companions, we want to keep the character of our friendly neighborhood, which is a classic example of the post-World War II suburban neighborhood ring that was fueled by the GI Bill. I have a master's degree in planning, and in my career I've worked in a planner in the field of land use and water conservation, and with a national nonprofit, and with the state of Tennessee for 35 years. Finally, ended my career as a senior transportation planner for TDOT. So my concentration of experience is on the side of regional environmental planning, but I have long followed the evolving side of urban planning, and I support efforts for infill development and increased urban density for environmental and greater transportation efficiency. From my professional experiences and personal values, I'm glad to join this effort to support the Harwood Conservation District. While it will allow for growth and development, it gives a pragmatic framework to better preserve the residential neighborhood character of this friendly and accessible neighborhood. I urge support of the Harwood Contextual Overlay District. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Allen. Next speaker, name, address, 2 minutes.
My name is Jane Motzinger, and I live at 1503 Harwood Drive in Nashville. So in early 2021, a small group of interested neighbors, myself and spouse included, spoke with Councilwoman Benedict about our interest in a contextual overlay after witnessing our neighborhood rapidly lose modest single-family homes, trees, diverse residents, and green space in exchange for concrete, waste, and homes that are not designed with any consideration of the surrounding traditional context of the neighborhood. Over many weeks and months, we tirelessly tried to knock every door in our neighborhood, trying to let people know that this was a topic of consideration for our community. Through that process, we collected a petition that demonstrates broad-level support for this and includes 29 households. We were unable to reach many, but we believe that this demonstrates broad-level support. Over the past week, I've even heard from neighbors further down Preston and other residents who were recently removed from the contextual overlay through an amendment at Planning Commission who asked if the overlay could be extended to encompass their lots. Our community wants this, and we are not alone. While a few of us are here today, many of our supporters are working class and or elderly residents who are either unable to attend public meetings or easily submit public comments via email. Today, I want to speak on their behalf too, and ask that you take into account this notable majority demonstration of support among the households who have chosen to engage in this matter and move forward by approving the Harwood Preston contextual overlay. Personally, I also recognize that our city is growing and that development is inevitable. However, I firmly believe that there's a more equitable and sustainable way to pursue development in and for our communities, a way that maintains its diversity, flora and fauna, and multi-generational nature. Thank you for your consideration of this, and for these reasons, I fully support the Harwood Preston contextual overlay.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, name, address, 2 minutes.
My name is Emily Ritter, and I live at 1528 Harwood Drive in East Nashville. I'm strongly in support of the contextual overlay proposed for this area. I moved to my home in 2018 because of its proximity to nature, the lovely mid-century home I could move into, and the socioeconomic diversity of the broader neighborhood, which affects the wonderful diversity of the zoned schools for my children. Last year, my next door neighbors sold their lovely home to a developer who tore down a home that would have sold to another middle-class family and is currently replacing it with 2 gigantic homes that will sell for 75% higher each than what was there before. This activity damages our neighborhood physically, and also it changes its very character by pricing out the community, the type of community that is already there. These homes replace moderately priced homes with homes that will vastly outprice the surrounding homes, which drives out socioeconomic diversity that is the richness of our neighborhood, city, and schools. And if homes need replacing, then we should replace them with homes that people can buy and can build their families in a consistent character with the area. So like Haynes said, we're very pro-development, and we understand that our city is expanding, and we're excited about that, and that's why we came to Nashville. But people should be able to build the homes they need and increase the population while being sustainable and equitable and inclusive in doing so. And the contextual overlay allows for continued building when it's necessary, but also is reasonable in its nature. So for these reasons, I very strongly support the overlay.
All right, thank you, Ms. River. Next speaker. Name, address, you got 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Laura Robinson, and I live at 1401 Harwood Drive. I moved to my home 10 years ago, but I'm a lifelong Middle Tennessean and was raised in Franklin, went to college in Murfreesboro, and moved to East Nashville in 2006 as a renter. When I was house hunting 10 years ago, I immediately fell in love with this area. Large lots, mature trees, and modest homes. After moving there, I realized owls, hawks, deer, squirrels, all right in Metro Nashville. I'm a real estate agent, and I'm a VRBO owner. I'm not against development or new construction when it's needed, but I am against cutting down all the trees, knocking down a house, and squeezing multiple homes onto it, leaving little to no green space. I ask that you approve this overlay so we can keep the charm of our neighborhood and restrict investors and developers from buying up every lot they can to squeeze in as many tall skinnies as they can. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Robinson. Next speaker. Name, address, 2 minutes.
My name is Laura Valentine. Linda Edwards and I live at 1418 Harwood Drive here in Nashville since 1996 and 2011, respectively. I'm speaking for us both in support of the Harwood Contextual Overlay District. Older neighborhoods in Nashville have a character and history that has developed over time and makes them desirable for generations to come. They take on the personalities of their residents with a rhythm, scale, and proportion that contributes to a cohesiveness missing in newer cookie-cutter suburban neighborhoods. Over the last 7 to 8 years, we have watched as the character and history has been bulldozed and replaced with 2 to 4 tall skinnies on lots that once held a single-family home. We have watched as our multi-generational, racially diverse community has fragmented and become whitewashed. Scale and character aside, we have also watched the infrastructure put in place to support what was once a community of modest homes crumble under our very feet from the weight of development. I understand the realities of population density in relation to its proximity to the centers of commerce and entertainment. But on the heels of population density comes traffic, noise, diminished air quality, a less safe and walkable neighborhood, and infrastructure requiring more repair. We welcome development and new neighbors who embrace the character and history of this neighborhood and the potential we have to enrich each other's lives. We welcome growth that places value on creating new spaces that fit into the scale and character of the neighborhood and not blot it out with unimaginative architecture that detracts from the cohesiveness of the community. We support the Harwood Contextual Overlay District because it is welcoming to growth without sacrificing community. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Ms. Valentine. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Benedict, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have a substitute, so I'd like to move the substitute, please.
All right, so Councilmember Benedict has moved the substitute, properly seconded. Explanation on the substitute?
Thank you. So at the, in looking and hearing from everybody, actually, let me back up. So there are 77 parcels in this, the original outline of the overlay. I heard from multiple well, for many residents, the area at the Planning Commission, the area that's to the south of McKennell is what is removed in the substitute bill. And in that area, I had received feedback from, I'd received more than 50% opposition from that section of the overlay, whereas in the rest of the overlay, I had 82% support. So with that in mind, at the Planning Commission, they approved this as substituted. So that's what I'd like to proceed with.
So you've heard an explanation of the substitute. Again, it has been moved and properly seconded. Any discussions on the substitute? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the substitute say aye. Opposed, no. Substitute's adopted. You're on BL 2021-855 as substituted.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just a brief explanation that, we heard it here tonight from the neighbors. And this is part of the reason why they elected me, I think. One of the things I spoke about when I was running is making sure that we sustain the character of the neighborhood. And you heard exactly that, make sure that we're taking care of trees and nature. So with that, I renew my motion to pass the substitute, and I appreciate everybody's support.
All right, so BL 2021-855 as substitute. Councilmember Benedict has moved that bill as substitute, properly seconded. Any discussion on the bill? Okay, this is on second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. BL 2021-855 as substitute passes on second reading. We're on item number 14, BL 2021-856 by Councilmember Withers. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by applying contextual overlay district to various properties located approximately 150 feet south of Eastland Avenue and 150 feet north of Portland Drive, along Brittany Court, Brittany Drive, and Barclay Drive. Councilmember Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to open the public hearing, please.
Okay, declare the public hearing open. Show of hands of those who are here in favor of this measure. All right, thank you. Show of hands of those who are here in opposition to this measure. Okay, I got one hand in opposition. Okay, those in favor wish to speak. If you want to, please come up to the microphone. I need name, address, and you'll have 2 minutes in which to speak. Again, name, address, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Caroline Buchholz. I live at 2664 Barclay Drive. I've lived in Middle Tennessee my entire life. I was raised in Franklin, went to college and graduate school in Rutherford County, and bought my home in East Nashville in 2014. The Barclay-Brittany contextual overlay is greatly needed in the area after we suffered immensely in the March 2020 tornado. It will help to enrich our neighborhood by keeping the front of our homes open to engaging with neighbors instead of garage doors and large driveways. We are a green community full of bikers, walkers, and runners, and I know that that is what has brought me to the neighborhood and brought most other folks to the neighborhood as well. We would love to use this overlay to help us preserve the green space and keep the neighborhood diverse and equitable for all those who want to live there. I also think it would help promote even more bike riding and walking and running, as we have a wonderful entrance to the Shelby Bottom Greenways at our Fortland trailhead. The overlay is already in place in a large portion of our neighborhood from Barclay to Fortland and is embraced greatly by the neighborhood as folks continue to engage with the park in the area. I would be very excited to see it extended to include more of our neighborhood and for us all to continue to enjoy the same protections of our green space. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, name, address, 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Laura Wallace, and I live at 2659 Barclay Drive. I have lived in East Nashville for 16 years, and I am in great support of the Brittany Barclay contextual overlay. I believe it helps to maintain the integrity of our neighborhood, and like Caroline said, we were hit hard by the 2020 tornado. And the overlay draws conscientious limits on the building of new homes in our community. And the 2020 tornado destroyed many of the houses in our neighborhood and disrupted many, many more lives. And I watched as many of my working class friends, renters at our neighborhood, had to leave their long-term homes and livelihood without the economic recourse that we homeowners enjoy through our homeowners insurance. The contextual overlay still allows for prosperity to continue in our neighborhood, yet it keeps the new construction from filling up our skyline, shading our gardens, and turning our green landscape into cement. It is a drop in the bucket for more sustainable building and community preservation. our neighborhood, those of us with the privilege to continue to live there. Thank you for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name's Jason Hitchcock. I'm at 2664 Barclay Drive. I'm here in support of the contextual overlay at Brittany and Barclay. I am a licensed architect and contractor working mostly in Nashville. I have worked with many people in the community to develop and design and build homes that abide by the contextual overlay in other parts of Nashville that have been very successful and have done immense great things to the neighborhood. I also support it because currently in our neighborhood, there's immense flooding that does happen, and this will only increase that by not allowing for proper green space to be maintained in these areas, to treat the stormwater in these areas. And I believe that there also encourages thoughtful development that can still accomplish a lot of the goals that Nashville needs to move towards while maintaining the characteristics of a beautiful neighborhood that my wife and I have worked hard to maintain our home and abide by a lot of it as well. And just want to support it. And thank you, Brett Withers, for working with us and the neighbors to get support for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hitchcock. Okay, anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Okay, those in opposition wishing to speak, come on up. So I'll need your name, address, and then you'll have 2 minutes in which to speak.
Hi, Jim Elliott, 2619 Barclay Drive. I live there with my wife, Brooke. We came into the neighborhood in January 2020 in a brand new 2-story home. We love the neighborhood. It's diversity of people. It's diversity of architecture, both attractive ranches and attractive 2-stories. And we love the walkability and the bike riding and walk. We see lots of other dog walkers walking their dogs as we walk ours. So we think that diversity is positive. We think the development in this area has been responsible on some very large lots versus Harwood, which has much smaller lots. Nashville is growing. We've got Oracle and Amazon coming in, and this gives mid-six figures housing stock to them. I mean, organically, the lots have increased by 24% in this neighborhood, and I think a very elegant and responsible way to help support that. This also provides appreciation for all owners. We've seen that. And I haven't really seen the quantification of people that are in favor of this in this neighborhood. We heard from Harwood. I think there's 82% in favor, as evidenced by Councilman Benedict. But I've only seen 3 in favor here, and that hasn't been quantified for me anywhere else. So I think individual choice is important for the 50-plus owners in this neighborhood that may or may not be aware of this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in opposition? All right, seeing none, declare the public hearing closed. Councilor Withers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I would like to move approval with a brief comment, and then I also have a substitute that I would like to add. But
all right, so the initial motion is to approve Bill 2021-856 on second. That's properly seconded, and then you've got your substitute.
I'll go ahead and move the substitute for now and then staff comment for later.
All right,
so please move the substitute.
Councilmember Withers has moved the substitute ordinance on 2021-856. Properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the substitute.
So the substitute is housekeeping. There is one street where we had the street name was misspelled, and we would hate to have any confusion about this. So this changes one letter from Fortland. Well, it was originally listed as Portland with a P, but it's really Fortland with an F. So it just corrects that so there's no confusion.
All right, so that's the substitute. It's been properly moved and seconded. Any questions on the substitute? Seeing none, all those in favor of the substitute say aye. Opposed, no. Substitute's adopted. Councilmember Withers, you're on your Bill 856 as substituted.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Just would like to renew my motion to approve with a brief comment.
Okay.
And that comment is just want to thank all overlays are neighborhood-led. The Rosebank community in particular has really, really embraced contextual overlays. They've always been very popular in that neighborhood. It would have been the easiest thing in the world to do to go ahead and apply a contextual overlay to the entire neighborhood. I mean, politically speaking, and probably from the planning staff perspective, Councilmember Anthony Davis and I during the last term, and as you see, Councilmember Benedict and I during this term, are taking a much more thoughtful approach. It is neighbor-driven. When we receive a request for this, all council members request that those neighbors go through a good process of soliciting feedback from their neighbors. We've had multiple public meetings about this that have been noticed, and the support has been very, very strong. All the way to, folks calling me on the phone. They get a postcard that says about a rezoning and that they're really concerned about it, and then they call me up and ask what it's about. And I said, well, we're doing the same thing we've done from Portland to the south, and then they're thrilled about it. So, do I have a quantification of it? No, I don't. I think it's a great question. But even for the filing of this one, I worked with the neighbors, and I asked them to defer it an additional month before I would file it to make sure they had done a little bit more outreach even at that time, and we've had great feedback since that time as well. So I feel very strongly that this has great support. I do want to point out as well for the, there is a parcel where an applicant had begun work on permits and had already submitted a site plan. As I mentioned in the Planning Commission, I have worked with the zoning administrator to make sure that those permits are protected. They can go ahead and complete that building project as they'd already done a lot of work. There are 2 parcels where they are currently vacant, but they have already submitted plans, but those have been issued. And so those 2 permits are also vested. They're able to go forward. There is 1 parcel where there's an existing house on it, and a builder asked me if I would work with them to preserve their plans, but they had not yet submitted a site plan at all. And so in that case, I can't honor that. I don't think that that's fair. But I have worked with every property owner that has come to me with some valid information that I can use to justify working with them to continue their permits. So I think this is a great tool. Some neighbors have referenced flooding. The contextual overlay helps to limit impervious area, not only from the building, but also from the driveways themselves. And all of that is always good in a suburban neighborhood like Rosebank, but especially in this area along Barclay and Brittany where there has been flooding. And I mean, a lot of it flooded in 2010. So I can't think of a more appropriate zoning tool to use for this specific area, in addition to the community support. And with that, I renew my motion to approve.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Withers. So the motion is to approve 856 as substituted. Again, it's been properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Bill 2021-856 as substituted is adopted on second reading. We're on item number 15, Councilmember Syracuse, Bill 2021-857, ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing RS 10 to SP zoning for properties located at 1908 Lebanon Pike. Lebanon Pike unnumbered at the northeast corner of Alejandro Drive and Lebanon Pike. It's 5.92 acres, permit 40 multifamily residential units. Councilmember Syracuse, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think this is like the 3rd one of these we'll have tonight. I'm not going to be doing a public hearing tonight, but I guess I need to call for committee reports first.
No committee reports on this?
Okay, so I have an amendment that has to go on here.
Okay, so go ahead and move the amendment.
I move the amendment.
Okay, the motion is to amend BL 2021-857, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
The amendment is because of the screwy new state law that we have to extricate the design standards from the actual text of the bill, right? So I need to have this amendment on there to comply with state law. And kudos to Matthew for having to deal with all these headaches.
He's standing at the door protecting our quorum.
He's our hall monitor right now.
Yeah, he's our hall monitor right now.
But anyways, that's what the amendment is. I move approval of it.
Okay, so Councilmember Syracuse has moved approval of the amendment. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Nobody in the queue. All in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. Councilmember Syracuse, you're on your bill as amended.
Okay, so now I'm going to defer to the first meeting in October.
Okay, so I haven't heard that one today. First meeting in October, properly seconded. Any discussion on the motion to defer? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. This one is moved to the first meeting in October. Remind me not to be here at the first meeting in October. BL 2021-858 by Councilmember Swope. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from SPMU to RM15 zoning for property located at 401 Ken Hawk Drive at southwest corner of Ken Hawk Drive and Elizabeth Pike. It's .39 acres. Councilmember Swope, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to open the public hearing.
Declare the public hearing open. A show of hands of those who are here in favor of this ordinance. Show of hands of those who are here in opposition to this measure. I see nobody on either side. Declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Swope, you're recognized.
Move approval.
Motion is to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. 858 is passed on second reading. Item number 17 by Councilmember Van Rees, BL 2021-859. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing OG to MUGA zoning for a portion property located at 6112 West Due West Avenue, northwest corner of West Due West Avenue and South Graycroft Avenue, 16.50 acres. Councilmember Van Rees, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. I would like to defer this to the public hearing in October so a community meeting can take place and it go back to the Planning Commission.
Okay, the motion is deferred to the first meeting in October, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. This one is moved to the first meeting in October. Okay, item number 18 by Councilmember Sepulveda, BL 2021-860. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from CS to MULA zoning. Various properties located along Largo Drive, Wallace Road, Linbar Drive, southeast corner of Linbar Drive and Harding Place is 15.78 acres. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're recognized.
Move to open the public hearing.
Okay, so declare the public hearing open. A show of hands of those who are here in favor of this measure. A show of hands of those who are here in opposition to this measure. I didn't see hands either way. Declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Sepulveda, you're on your bill.
Move for approval.
The motion is to approve 860 on second reading, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We're on item number 19 by Councilmember Taylor. This is an ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code, changing from RS5 to R6A zoning for property located at Booker Street, unnumbered, approximately 410 feet east of 25th Avenue North. It's 0.22 acres. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to open the public hearing.
Declare the public hearing open. A show of hands of those who are here in favor of this measure. Okay, I see a hand in the back. Show of hands of those who are here in opposition to this measure. Don't see anybody in opposition. Those in favor wish to speak. You want to come up or are you okay? Declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember Taylor, you're recognized.
Thank you. Move for approval.
Got a motion to approve, properly seconded. Any discussion on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We're on item number 20 by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by changing from IR to SP zoning for properties located at 1212, 1300, 1302, 1304 Herman Street and Herman Street, unnumbered portion of 907 12th Avenue North, northwest corner of Herman Street and 12th Avenue North, 1.79 acres. Councilmember O'Connell, you are recognized on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to open the public hearing, please.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, all right, got it. Okay, so Councilmember O'Connell has moved to open the hearing, public hearing. I declare the public hearing open. Show of hands of those of individuals who are here in favor of this measure. All right, show of hands of those who are here in opposition to this measure. See nobody not. Oh, I do see somebody in opposition. I'm sorry. Okay, those in favor wish to speak, come on up to the front. Need your name, address, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hello, members of the council. I'm David Kleinfelter, former member of this body, and with me is Mr. Ben Krieger, who's with the owners. I'm only the one that's going to talk briefly. He did fly into town for this. We've been through the Planning Commission. We did not know there was any opposition. We at one point did have an owner of a rental property who we talked to a little bit, and maybe have had some issues. This property there's actually 2 of these in a row. This is the first one, and it's on Herman. It's across the street from what's commonly known as the tent and awning property. The policy is neighborhood evolving. It was approved by the Planning Commission. It's a 5-story multifamily structure that is consistent with the policy. It's on an entire lot that's all currently a parking lot. I mean, not really parking, but open storage and a cell tower. And it's across Herman Street from the tent and awning building that's existing. which will be the next one. And so we do request approval. Again, Mr. Krieger's here. It's been through planning. Nobody's heard from anybody that had a sort of substantive basis in opposition. Like I said, we did know there at one point, I don't know if this is the same person, because we tried to find them, who did own a rental property and was interested in what we were doing, and so that's where we are. We would ask you to approve it and to move it forward. Do think it meets policy.
All right. Thank you. All right. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? All right. Ma'am, speaking in opposition, come on up. Need your name, address, and you'll have 2 minutes in which to speak.
Hi, my name is Ortelia Dansby. I live at 1213 Meharry Boulevard. I've been in Nashville all of my life. I have lived on Meharry Boulevard for 27 years and raised my children there. This is my first time attending one of these meetings and trying to understand exactly what is going on. And actually, I know that in the area, the street that they're speaking of or that's on here is a very small and narrow street. And as far as what is going to be built there or torn down, I'm not for certain, but I do know that already that there's a lot of, I think that it would cause more traffic and more of a traffic jam in that area. And already in some of the neighborhoods, the streets are very small and hard for people to get where they need to go. So as far as me opposing it, that would be most of my reason in being that. And as I said, I don't know exactly what the plans are to be put there. But if it is some type of big building to where there's going to be a lot of people moving in there, I just think that the area is very small for that. And so I'm pretty much kind of opposed to it. I like the neighborhood to where it stays small and quiet. And that's just my opinion. And I like my neighborhood like it is. So, yes, thank you for hearing me.
Sure. Thank you for being here. So I don't think there's anybody else in opposition. Declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. You all have heard some of the process tonight. We wanted to go ahead and do the public hearing because the applicant had arrived in town specifically for this. I do want to put the amendment on there, so I'd like to move the amendment, please.
Okay. So Councilmember O'Connell has moved the amendment on 2021-862. Properly second. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
I believe the amendment just addresses the materiality like a number of the other bills on the agenda tonight. And so that and on the next one are going to be similar to some of the other bills you'll see.
Okay. So the amendment, you've heard the explanation of the amendment. Any questions about the amendment?
I guess, Mr. President, I don't know, this bill may not be the appropriate vehicle for this, but I think at some point it may be useful for whether we want to do a special meeting of the Planning, Zoning, and Historical Committee or something. It'd be helpful, I think, to discuss the pretty impactful change to state law.
So I may leave that up to Councilmember Murphy because I understand. I think we all got kind of hit with this and we're trying to figure out how to make this work.
That'd be fine. I'd be happy to just do that at her discretion.
Okay. So we're on an amendment on 862. It's been properly seconded. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. Councilmember O'Connell, you're on your bill as amended, 2021-862 as amended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move approval as amended, and I will make sure, let me do that, and then I'll, with a brief comment, if you don't mind.
Okay, so the motion is to pass on second reading. Ma'am, there's 3 readings on this bill. This is just the second reading. BL 2021-862 as amended. The motion is to approve. Back to you, Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you. I'd like to make sure, yes, we're gonna finish up the process. We're gonna deal with some of the technical issues on the materiality portion, and then I'm gonna go back there and make sure that the applicant and speaker are connected and with me as well to see if we can address any issues.
Okay. So you've heard the explanation. The motion is to pass on second reading as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The bill as amended is adopted on second reading. And then we've got one more from Councilmember O'Connell. It's BL 2021-863, ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws by changing from IR to SP zoning for property located at 1301 Herman Street, southwest corner of Herman Street and 12th Avenue North, 2.11 acres, to permit a mixed-use development. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized on 2021-863.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is literally across the street. I'd like to open the public hearing.
Okay, declare the public hearing open. Show of hands of those who are here in favor of this measure. Okay, same two hands. Show of those who are here in opposition to the same measure. Same person there. Anybody wish to speak on this one? It's kind of a companion bill. Mr. Kleinfelter, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Just briefly, again, actually, I realized I can give you my address, 2904 23rd Avenue South. That this is a different policy, and it's a policy that supports more height, and this building does actually have a couple more stories on it because of that. Again, this is at the tent and awning property. It's right next to another property known as, I think, the Brickyards it's called. So this is all that area right behind Marathon Village that is redeveloping with multifamily. And there actually is sort of a line in the policy. The planners can speak to it more. It's not my job anymore, but they can speak to it how that does stop at that line, and it becomes more like the single family and duplexes that are in that sort of Meharry area. So this is Herman right on, I believe it's 12th, and right next to the interstate, that area kind of right behind Marathon Village. And it's an area that is getting more density because it's walkable to downtown. And it's frankly, where we want our people to live, as opposed to, these communities we've been hearing about from the context overlay. So policy supports it, planning has approved it, and we would ask you to approve it as well.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Kleinfelter. Ma'am, you wish to speak again?
I do understand, I guess, what they're saying, but at the same time, I think I feel like it's very unfair to have people that are coming in from other places or states or whatever and buying up the property to where you are building these homes that are tall and skinny, once again, and not affordable for people that are already in that area. So to me, I feel that that's very unfair, and I would pretty much, from my standpoint of view, like for it to stay pretty much kind of the way that it is without having all the extra people coming in and on the small streets and everything. The homes that are being built there are not, do not appeal as far as like that neighborhood, I guess, was. And I know that things change, but at the same time, though, once again, it just seems like there's a lot of people coming in and just buying up the property and doing what they want to without consideration of how the neighborhood already is. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you for that. I wasn't planning on speaking, but I just wanted to say, as a North Nashvilleian who was recently able to move back into my community, I just wanted to stand in solidarity with the person who just spoke and really spoke to outside developers coming into our communities, building these tall and skinnies and making our communities furthermore unaffordable, displacing us at even more faster rates. So I just wanted to stand up here and stand in solidarity with the last community member and just say that I'm opposed to any more new development happening in our places that will end up changing the landscape of our communities and further pushing out more people.
All right. Can I get your name and address? I don't think we got that.
Jamel Campbell Gooch, 12th Avenue North, 37208.
All right. All right. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing none, declare the public hearing closed. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. This one, too, we've got an amendment to move, so I'd like to move the amendment.
Okay, so Councilmember O'Connell has moved the amendment, properly seconded. Explanation of the amendment.
Same as before, this is the technical update based on changes to materiality required under state law. So that is what we're doing on several of these bills.
Okay, so you've heard an explanation of the amendment, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. Councilmember O'Connell, you're on your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move approval of the brief comment.
Okay, the motion is to approve 2021-863 on second reading. with the amendment, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to be clear, from the plans of both of these buildings, these would not be what I think is traditionally referred to as tall and skinnies. These are going to be, they by virtue of the density where the multifamily applies, this is going to be housing that is actually more affordable. Again, I will, as soon as we are done with this, just to remind folks, this has a third reading, but this, I will make sure to head back to the gallery and connect everyone so we can continue this conversation before third.
Okay. So the motion is to adopt BL 2021-863 as amended on second reading. Again, properly seconded. Any other discussion on this one?
The only other thing I would add too is that Herman is a transit corridor as well, so it kind of speaks to what the applicant was suggesting, that the part of the reason for the policy in this area is to make sure that people who choose to live in this location have easier access to transit. So I've ridden the Herman route myself several times, and again, the stretch there lines up just adjacent to the railroad tracks that already cut through there, and that's the rest of the area is basically the neighborhood context that is familiar to a lot of folks in the area. So just wanted to be clear about where this is and what is being proposed.
Okay. So we're on the motion to approve as amended, 863. Nobody in the queue. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Bill is adopted as amended on second reading. We're now back on item number 3. This is BL 2021-621 by Councilmember Murphy, Allen, O'Connell, and Bradford. Ordinance in regard amending section 17.40.720, 17.40.730 of the Metropolitan Code, require additional public notice regarding applications for permits from the Historic Zoning Commission. Councilmember Murphy, you are recognized.
Thank you. We still have some community engagement to do, and so I'd like to defer this to the first meeting in November because it sounds like we have a really long public hearing in October.
Okay, so the motion is to defer to the first meeting in November, properly seconded. Any discussions on the deferral motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. I believe that takes care of everything on the bills on public hearing. Okay, we are now on the consent resolutions and resolutions. Okay. All right, so we're on consent resolutions and resolutions. I'm going to go through the consent calendar. Stay with me. Item number 22, RS 2021-1089 is on consent. 1104 is on consent. This is on page 13 of my calendar. 1113 on consent. 1114 on consent. 1115 on consent. 1116 on consent. 1117 on consent. 1118 on consent. 1119 on consent. 1120 is on consent. 1124 is on consent. 1126 is on consent. 1127 on consent. 1128 on consent. 1129 on consent. 1130. 1131 on consent. 1132 on consent. 1133 on consent. 1134 on consent. 1135 on consent. 1136 on consent. 1137 on consent. 1138 on consent. 1139 on consent. 1140 on consent. And 1141 on consent. Okay. Anything needs to be taken off? Councilmember Suara? Councilmember Suara has asked, which one do you want? 1138. Okay, 1138 is now off of consent. Okay, anything else needs to be taken off consent? Okay, here we go. Okay, first one, RS 2021-1089 by Councilmember Sledge, Toombs, and others. Resolution accepting a grant from the Metro Historical Commission Foundation to the Metro government through the Historical Commission to assist with a portion of the cost associated with the site's master plan for Fort Negley Park. That's Sledge, Toombs, Murphy on the bill. RS 2021-1104, O'Connell, Taylor, Murphy, and others. Resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement by the State of Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Metropolitan Government through TDOT and multimodal infrastructure for the Charlotte Avenue / Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard Transit Headways and Congestion Management Project. RS 2021-1113 by Toombs and Gamble. Resolution approving the assignment of a contract by and between the Metropolitan Government and Youth Opportunity Investments, LLC to Youth Opportunities of America, LLC for operation management services for the Davidson County Juvenile Detection Facility. RS 2021-1114 by Councilmember Johnston. Resolution approving the election of certain notary publics for Davidson County. RS 2020-1115, Toombs and Welsh. Resolution approving Amendment 1 to a grant from the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency to the Metropolitan Government through the Department of Finance to provide public assistance pursuant to Presidential Disaster Declaration number FEMA 4550-DRTN. Cost incurred for severe storm, straight line winds, and flooding on March 3rd and 4th, 2020. RS 2021-1116 by Sawara, Toombs, Welsh, and Hurt. Resolution accepting the recommendation of the COVID-19 Financial Oversight Committee to distribute $3 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds from the COVID-19 ARP funds number 300216 to provide rent and mortgage payments and utility payments for Davidson County residents who suffered a negative economic impact during the coronavirus pandemic, who do not meet the eligibility requirements of the HOPE program administered by MAC to be administered by the United Way of Greater Nashville. RS 2021-1117, Withers, Toombs, and others. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency to negotiate and enter into a pilot agreement, accept payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes with respect to a multifamily housing project located at 407 South 4th Street, known as Shelby House. RS 2020-1118 by Toombs, Murphy, and others. Resolution accepting a grant from the Tennessee Historical Commission to the Metropolitan Government through the Metropolitan Nashville Historical Commission to provide for a comprehensive countywide cemetery preservation plan for Davidson County, Tennessee. Resolution accepting a grant, this is 1119 by Toombs, Taylor, and others. Resolution accepting a grant for the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metropolitan Government through the Board of Health to provide supplemental foods, nutrition, education, breastfeeding, promotion to eligible persons to promote good health. RS 2020-1120 by Toombs, Taylor, and others. Resolution accepting a grant from Human Services to the Metropolitan Government acting through and by the Metropolitan Board of Health to conduct immunization record audits for child care centers, drop-in centers, and group child care homes, ensure the safety and well-being of the children and families in Tennessee. RS 2020-1124 by Toombs, Van Rees, and others. Resolution appropriating $30,000 to a grant contract by and between the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the National Public Library and Oasis Center to provide services that help youth grow, thrive, and create positive change in the lives of our community. RS 2021-1126 by Toombs. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law, compromise and settle personal injury claim of Rana V. Smalling against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $22,500. RS 2021-1127 by Toombs. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claims of Jocelyn Ibarra against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $7,200. RS 2021-1128, that's item number 40, Councilmember Toombs. Resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle personal injury claim of Felisa Martin against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $7,200. RS 2021-1129, Toombs, Van Rees, and Vercher. Resolution accepting in-kind grant from the Josie Davis Foundation and the Friends of Mill Ridge Park to the Metropolitan Government through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation to create a master plan for the Moore Farm at Mill Ridge Park. RS 2021-1130 by Toombs and Van Rees. Resolution accepting a grant from the Friends of Mill Ridge Park to the Metropolitan Government through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation for the construction of a primitive trailhead at Mill Ridge Park. RS 2020-1131, O'Connell, Toombs, and Van Rees. Resolution approving Amendment 1 to an in-kind grant from the Historic Capital Corridor Foundation to the Metropolitan Government through the Metropolitan National Parks and Recreation Department for the purpose of providing continued programming in, maintenance of, and staffing for Church Street Park. RS 2020-1132 by Withers, Toombs, and others. Resolution accepting an in-kind grant from the Nashville chapter of the Tennessee Ornithological Society, to the Metropolitan Government, acting by and through the Metropolitan Board of Parks and Recreation for the installation of bird crash deterrent windows at the Shelby Bottoms Nature Center. RS 2021-1133 by Taylor Tombstone Van Reese. Resolution accepting in-kind grant for the Tennessee Tennis Association of the Metropolitan Government through the Metro Nashville Parks and Recreation Department to help Centennial Sportsplex maintain its facilities. RS 2021-1134 by Taylor Tombstone and others. Resolution accepting a grant for the Centennial Park Conservancy to the Metropolitan Government through the Parks and Recreation Department for the construction of the Children's Memory Garden in Centennial Park. RS 2021-1135 by Toombs, Murphy, and others. Resolution accepting a flood mitigation assistance grant from TEMA to the Metropolitan Government through the Department of Water and Sewerage Services, and authorizing the acquisition and demolition of 4 houses located in various floodways, floodplains in Davidson County. RS 2020-1136, Toombs, Nash, and others. Resolution accepting a grant agreement between the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County through Water and Sewer Services and Hands on Nashville for an AmeriCorps program participant to perform volunteer services on Metro's waste reduction programs and activities. RS 2021-1137, resolution authorizing the Metropolitan Department of Law to compromise and settle property damage claim of Laverta E. Robertson against the Metropolitan Government in the amount of $30,684.57. RS 2021-1139, resolution honoring Olympian and Tennessee State University Director of Men's and Women's Track and Field, Chandra Cheeseborough Geis. RS 2021-1140, that was by Van Reese, Allen, Virtue, and a host of other people. RS 2021-1140 by Councilmember Pulley, resolution honoring the career of Metro Nashville Public Schools educator Julius J. B. Gore III. And the last one is RS 2021-1141 by Councilmember Hurt, Hauser, Bradford, and a number of other council members. A resolution recognizing a ceremony of the 20th anniversary of the September 11, 2001 attack on our country and honoring the memory of those lives lost. Those are the items on the consent calendar. Does anything else need to be taken off? Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Need to take off item number 43, please.
Okay, item 43 is coming off. Okay, consent. Anything else? All right, I need committee. Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. 1121, please.
1141? 1121, excuse me. Okay. Anything else? All right. We got planning and zoning. Councilmember Murphy, you get a start.
Thank you. On RS 1189, 1104, and 1135, we were 11 in favor, 0 against. I think that's all I had.
Let's see, 1118, was that on there? Yeah.
Then that would also be 11 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, and you said 1189, it's actually 1089, but that's okay. We got it.
I've just switched my numbers around to
That's
keep
fine.
you on your toes.
Okay. Not worried about you quite yet. Affordable housing, Councilmember Suara?
In favor, 0 against.
Yeah, 11, 17, 16 and 17?
16 and 17.
Okay, thank you. Budget and Finance, Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports for RS 2021-1089, 1113, 1115, 1116, 1117, 1118, 1119, 1120, 1124, 1126, 1127, 1128, 1129, 1130, 1132, 1133, 1134, 1135, 1136, and 1137 are all 7 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstaining.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Porterfield. Councilmember Nash, Public Works.
Public Works took up 1104, 1135, and 1136 and recommended them all for approval. 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you. Parks, Library, and Arts, Councilmember Van Reese.
Thank you. 1089 was 4 in favor, 0 against. 1124 was 4 in favor, 0 against. 1129, 4 in favor, 0 against. 1130, 5 in favor, 0 against. And we kept growing because in 1132, 33, and 34, we were 7 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Van Rees. Councilmember Gamble, Public Safety.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Public Safety took up Resolution 2021-1113 on the consent agenda. 6 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Gamble. Councilmember Taylor, Health and Hospitals.
Thank you. Health and Hospital Social Services considered Resolution 2021-1119 and 1120, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. And last but not least, Rules, Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you. We considered RS 2021-1114, 1138, 1139, 1140, and 1141. We voted 5 in favor, 0 against.
Okay.
And with that, I'd move the consent agenda.
All right, Councilmember Johnston has moved the consent agenda, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. All right. All right, so let's go back and take up the those items that were not on the consent agenda. We're on page 13, item number 24, RS 2021-1111. Councilmember Stiles, Suara, Bradford, and others, a resolution celebrating the 20th anniversary of the Frist Art Museum. Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. There is an amendment to this. I'd like to move the amendment first, if I can.
All right, so I've got Councilmember O'Connell's name on the amendment.
Right.
Who wants to handle it?
I would like to give that to Councilmember O'Connell.
Okay, Councilmember O'Connell, I'm going to call on you for the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move the amendment.
Okay,
Brief
Councilmember
comment.
O'Connell has moved an amendment to RS 2021-1111, properly seconded. Back to you for an explanation of the amendment.
Thank you. This was just making sure we did get one specific recital in there that appropriately recognizes the Frist Art Museum's longtime support of young people and encountering the arts. So thank you to Councilmember Stiles for the opportunity to do that.
All right, so Councilmember O'Connell has moved the amendment to 2021-1111, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment is adopted. Councilmember Stiles, you're on your resolution as amended.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to move for approval, please.
Okay, so the motion is to approve 1111 as amended, properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We are on RS 2021-1121, item number 33. This is a resolution approving a contract for services by and between the Metropolitan Government acting through the Metropolitan Board of Health and Neighborhood Health, Inc. to provide homeless individuals with medical services at 2 or more clinics in or near downtown Nashville. Councilmember Toombs, Taylor, Welsh, and Hurt are the sponsors. Councilmember Taylor, do you want to handle this one, or Councilmember Porterfield? Councilmember Taylor, recognize you.
Thank you. Yes. There's an amendment on this. I haven't signed on to the amendment. Or, excuse.
Is there an amendment? Well, not on this one.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not on this one. Yes.
It's on the next one.
Thank you. Committee reports.
Committee reports, Budget and
Yes.
Finance, Councilmember Porterfield.
My apologies, Vice Mayor. Is this 1121?
This is 1121.
Okay, 6 in favor and 1 abstention.
Okay, Councilmember Taylor, you got the other one. Committee report.
Yep. 1121, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Okay.
And I'd like to move for approval.
All right. So the motion is to approve is to move for approval RS 2021-1121, properly seconded. Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I just wanted to know if anyone knew the amount of the grant that had been approved, the contract.
I was going to say, I can answer it.
Okay. Director Zeitlin, you're recognized.
The amount of the grant is $355,200 for the 1-year term.
Okay, is it a recurring grant?
This is something that, there's a new grant each year. So this is, it is recurring.
Right.
It's been one each year.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Hurt. Councilmember Suara, believe you have to, do you have to abstain on this one? Okay. All right. So Councilmember Suara has to abstain. Anybody else have questions on this one? Councilmember Vercher, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If someone can answer why neighborhood health was chosen and how?
We're looking at the administration, do you know?
We've had a contractual arrangement with Neighborhood Health since about 2005. It does go through the procurement process. They've done, I think by all accounts, a remarkably effective job. This renders both mental health services, dental services, emergency health care services to about 3,500 homeless individuals. And they continue to do great work, and we're appreciative.
Were they the only ones to go through the procurement to bid on it? Were they the only ones to bid on it? Were they the only nonprofit to bid on it?
I don't know that answer. I apologize.
Oh, thank you, Mr. James. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Vercher. Anybody else in the queue? Councilmember Sawara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The reason why I had to abstain was because of a conflict with Neighborhood Health. But I do want to say that they are a federally funded clinic, and they have about 13 locations throughout the city, which puts them in a place to be able to service in different parts of the county, also leveraging the federal money that they get. So I actually think that we need to take advantage of that federal funding to be able to, and the different locations to be able to reach as many constituents as possible. But I say that while abstaining, but I don't know if there's anything illegal about that, but I just wanted to answer in terms of what the clinic does.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Sawara. Anybody else in the queue on this one? Oh, Councilmember Hurt, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. And I know that I signed on this too because I'm very familiar with Neighborhood Health and the great work that they do. However, it does concern me that we do have contracts such as this where they may not go through a procurement process, that it has been recurring, and it may be recurring since 2005. And knowing that we have an EBO that has been in place, and we're looking to make sure that we are showing more equity and inclusion, that this may be an opportunity for Neighborhood Health to partner with a smaller healthcare facility like Matthew Walker Comprehensive Health or some others that are throughout the neighborhoods and communities where they may be able to help serve the community. And I do know that they have several locations, and they're very much capable. But just to share the wealth that the Nashville government is putting out there, I think is a fair thing for us to look at in our future dealings.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Hurt. Okay, anybody else in the queue on this? All right, seeing none, we're on RS 2021-1121. The motion is to approve this resolution. It's been properly seconded. Seeing nobody else in the queue, all those in favor of the resolution say aye. Opposed, no. And there's one abstention, Councilmember Sawara. Okay. Next one is RS 2021-1122 by Councilmembers Toombs, Taylor, Gamble, Welsh, Sawara, and Hurt. Resolution approving a grant contract between the Metropolitan Government acting through the Metropolitan Board of Health and the Mental Health Cooperative, provide expertise and staff in emergency behavioral health care, support and launch the pilot year of the Metropolitan Nashville Police Department's co-response model with Nashville Partners in Care. Councilmember Porterfield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Okay, I've got Health and Hospitals, Councilmember Taylor.
Health and Hospitals approve the amendment for 1122, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, and with the amendment, is that what you said?
Yes, with the amendment.
Okay. Public Safety, Councilmember Gamble, you're recognized.
Public Safety recommended approval, 6 in favor, 0 against, as amended.
Okay, thank you. And Budget and Finance, Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval as amended, 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions. And with that, I would like to move the bill as amended.
All right, so let's get the amendment on first. Councilmember Porterfield moves the amendment, properly seconded. Director Zeitlin, can you tell us what the amendment does?
Sure. This amendment adds a grant budget that was inadvertently left off of the grant contract.
Okay. So it's just a housekeeping and
Just a
amendment to fix it?
housekeeping amendment.
Okay, so Councilmember Porterfield moves the amendment, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Councilmember Hart, you're recognized.
Same thing as the previous one, just want to make it a matter of record. And I think in one of the legislations, I don't know if it's on consent or somewhere else, where we have Metro Action, and now there's going to be money allocated to United Way. So I think that same practice needs to take place in other situations, like with Metro, the Board of Health and Mental Health Co-op, as well as neighborhood health and other like agencies.
Okay. All right, thank you, Councilmember Hart. You're so recognized. Anybody else on this one? RS 2021-1122 as amended. Councilmember Vercher, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Me and Councilwoman at Large Hurt, we're doing the tag team thing tonight. Same questions as it relates to this. Was there any effort as it related to collaborate with any minority organizations that's in this particular space?
Mr. Jameson?
The council may remember that this resolution is following the MOU that the council had already approved, setting out the collaboration with the Metro Nashville Police Department. And they may remember that that MOU was done pursuant to state law, which designates the mental health cooperative as the agency. So it's a little bit of a unique situation, but we were sort of assigned the dance partner at the beginning.
Councilmember Vercher?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Jameson, we'll take that as a no. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
All right, so we are on RS 2021-1122. We're not sure, we're debating up here whether we actually voted on the amendment, so we're going to vote on it again and make sure we've got it right. This is an amendment moved by Councilmember Porterfield. Again, it's just a housekeeping amendment, correct? All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Opposed, no. Amendment's adopted. Now you're on your resolution as amended. Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I would like to move the bill as amended, please.
Okay. So the resolution as amended is moved for passage, properly seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We're now on item number 35, RS 2021-1123. Councilmember Stiles, Allen, Gamble, Hurt, and Sepulveda. Resolution urging the Metropolitan Public Health Department Chief Medical Director to require masks be worn by all individuals in public indoor spaces. Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports?
Councilmember Taylor, Health and Hospitals.
Thank you. Health and Hospitals moved approval of 1123, 3 in favor, 2 against.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Stiles, you're recognized on your resolution.
Thank you very much. I would like to move for approval with a brief comment, please.
Okay, so Councilmember Stiles has moved for approval of RS 2021-1123, properly seconded. Back to you.
So, colleagues, here we are 2 weeks later from our last meeting, and I know it was a late file resolution at that time because the numbers then were becoming concerning. In the 2 weeks since, we have seen our numbers in this state be number one across the entire country just last week. And if we were a small country, we would have been number 2 in the whole world. I think it is very evident that the data is showing us that we need to take a stand. This resolution is asking the health department to institute a mask mandate as they did last year. It is my hope that we will all vote in agreement. The CDC has already said that if you are in an area of high spread, we should all be wearing masks, whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. And clearly, with our designation last week, that is us. I can say that I've spoken with businesses in my district. They have also stated, many of them, that they would like to have a mask mandate on the books from the city because the onus then is on us for the responsibility, and they feel a little bit safer doing that. And I think that should be our priority. Our priority should also be our constituents. and keeping them alive. So I think we should support the health department and push them to put this mask mandate back in place. And for anyone that is concerned about enforcement, I've said it before and I'll say it again now. We had a concern about enforcement last year with contact tracing and also enforcement of masks on Broadway. And when the case numbers got high enough, we figured it out. People came together, MNPD worked and sent out individuals to start doing citations. I think that's what we need to consider right now. We have people in ICU, adults in ICU, we have children in ICU. This time last year, our numbers were actually better than they are right now. I think it is important that we're focused on people and not politics. I know that many people are fearful of the state and preemption and other aspects that could potentially happen here, but the dead can't change anything, and they can't vote, that's for sure. So I think for right now, what we need to do is make sure we're leading by example as well. In this building, we have been told, keep your mask on at all times, and I can say some of us in here tonight have not been adhering to that. We can hear you. If you've got a microphone, don't pull your mask down. That is just disrespectful. We have immunocompromised people in here. I know I am one of them. So please figure out how to use a mic and keep your mask on. That would be great. Councilmember Benedict made a great statement in the Health Committee. In speaking with the Health Department, she said, it seems like this is an either-or situation from your standpoint. And it should really be an and. I think it's mask and vaccinations. It's not just vaccinations and nothing else. We know that masks work. Please vote yes.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hancock, you're recognized.
So it's a little ironic that last year, kind of at this time, I don't remember the exact month, but I think we were at Music City Center, we voted down a resolution that asked the health department to stop the mask mandate because we said we didn't want to get political. And now we're asking the health department to do something that last year we thought they had the intellect and wisdom to do. We are not nurses. None of us are doctors. We've got salespeople and real estate agents and accountants and lawyers. We've got all sorts of folks on council, but we're not medical professionals. Yet we do have a Department of Health. And we have Dr. Jahangir, who said the best way to beat this is to get vaccinated. And I have confidence, and I've seen him wearing masks, that when he and the health department feel that it's the right thing to do, that they will make that decision. And at the last council meeting, or maybe it was 2 council meetings ago, I did vote in favor of a resolution that commended Dr. Battle for the mask mandate in schools, because we let her make the decision because it's her job, and then we supported her in her job instead of trying to tell her how to do her job. And I feel like that's the same thing we need to do with the health department, is let them have the wisdom to make this decision and not make it political.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Young.
Previous question.
Previous question has been called for. So we're not voting on the resolution. We're voting on the previous question. All in favor of the previous question, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Previous question prevails. We are on the resolution. We'll try this by voice vote. We're on RS 2021-1123 by Councilmember Stiles. All those in favor of the resolution say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. I think we have to go on the board. I can't necessarily tell. Okay. So, Madam Clerk. We're on RS 2021-1123, Councilmember Stiles, Allen, Gamble, and others. Resolution urging the Metropolitan Public Health Department Chief Medical Director to require masks be worn by all individuals in public indoor spaces. Madam Clerk, you ready? Okay. If you would, open up those sheets. Obviously, if you're for the resolution, you would vote aye. If you're against, you'd vote no.
Just here.
All votes are in. Madam Clerk, close the machines, take the vote. Just needs a simple majority, right? Just the resolution. Ayes 21, noes 9, 5 abstentions. Resolution passes. Okay, we're on to RS 2021-1125. Councilmembers Nash and Bradford. Resolution requesting the National Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure conduct a study to determine the feasibility and cost of contracting with the state to see and allow for NDOT to maintain state routes in Davidson County. This is by Councilmembers Nash and Bradford. Councilmember Nash, you're recognized.
Committee report.
It's yours. Public Works.
We recommended a 1 meeting deferral, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right. And what do you want to do now? Same thing?
Same thing.
All right. Councilmember Nash has moved for a 1 meeting deferral, properly seconded. Any discussion on that one? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution is deferred in 1 meeting. Okay. Item number 43, RS 2021-1131 by Councilmembers O'Connell, Tombstone, Van Reese. Resolution approving Amendment 1 to an in-kind grant from the Historic Capital Corridor Foundation to the Metropolitan Government acting through the Parks and Recreation Department. Purpose of providing continued programming and maintenance of and staffing for Church Street Park. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I raised this point in committee last year with RS 2023-42. We received a tremendous amount of pressure as a body to not even defer this a single meeting. After that, we went the better part of a year with the park fenced off and closed, despite being pressed to rush this. As a condition of doing this, I wanted to work with the administration. I have a letter still signed by the mayor, the key phrase in which is toward the end. I am committed to a fully public process for determining the future of the park, including how we select stakeholders, vendors, designs, and funding strategies. That commitment has not yet been honored. We don't have a funding strategy. This is basically the Historic Capital Corridor Foundation stepping up again with a 1 fiscal year in-kind contribution to take the programming through the end of the current fiscal year. After that, I have no idea what happens. We have not had a public meeting with a lot of these stakeholders to discuss designs, and specifically not one to discuss funding strategies. I don't know if the mayor's office has intentions about the future of the park. I think the Metro Parks Department is waiting for them to indicate what their preferred future outcome is here. The Civic Design Center is waiting in the wings. The Nashville Downtown Partnership is in a similar holding pattern as we wait to figure out what the future of this park is. I am certainly not going to hold up people trying to give money to continue programming the park, but I do expect the administration to honor their commitments to Church Street Park and the urban residents who use it. So as we pass this, I would remind the administration of this letter and hope that we can get to work on the future of Church Street Park, which is an important, small, urban green space.
All right, Councilmember O'Connell, what do you want to do? You want to move this resolution?
We can move it.
We need some committee reports. Budget and Finance, Councilmember Porterfield.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance voted 7 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstaining.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Van Reese. There you go.
Yes.
Parks Library.
Thank you. Parks, Library, and Arts voted in favor, 7, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd like to move approval.
Okay, got a motion to approve, properly seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Resolution passes. We are on RS 2021-1138 by Councilmember Sawara, Hancock, Porterfield, and others. Resolution honoring the life of Charles Sumner. Councilmember Sawara, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Rules, Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you. We had no objection.
Oh, it was. It's a resolution that came to you on time. It's RS 2021-1138. Item number 50.
I thought that was on consent. I'm sorry.
It was. She took it off.
Okay. Then we voted 5 in favor, 0 against.
Okay. Thank you. Back to you, Councilmember Sawara.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval with a brief comment.
Okay. Motion to approve, properly seconded. Back to you.
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to recognize the life and legacy of Mr. Charles Sumner. Somebody had asked me today how I met Charles, and thinking back, I realized that I met Charles everywhere. Charles was for civil rights, gay rights, human rights, and more importantly, he led an organization that dealt with the separation of church and state, and so his activism on religious freedom was very great, and so I met him in so many places. I was part of the ACLU, the L Club, and so many organizations that work for so many citizens, and Charles did so much. And while we were doing the resolution, I thought it was befitting that Charles is actually a descendant of the late Senator Charles Sumner, who actually introduced the 13th Amendment in the Senate to end slavery. And so Charles continued the legacy of his great, whatever that is, and fought until the end for rights for all Nashvilleians. And I'm encouraging everyone that haven't signed on to please consider co-sponsoring this and honoring the legacy of Charles Sumner and all the work that he did for civil, human, and all rights in Nashville. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Sawara. All right, Councilmember Welsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I would just like to echo everything that Councilmember Sawara said about Charles Sumner. Charles was a very dear friend of mine. I met him years and years ago when I founded Radio Free Nashville. He was relatively new to Nashville, and he supported the station from the get-go. I was the president of the board of Americans United for Separation of Church and State for several terms and worked with him very, very closely. When he was in college, he was a member of the Phi Kappa Sigma fraternity, and their mission is to shape men into being leaders with steadfast values and a duty to help their fellow man, and he certainly embodied all of that. He was a copious letter to the editor writer. You have probably seen his name in the Tennessean millions of times over the years. He was just a very kind and wonderful man. And you know, it's said that the world is run by people who show up. Well, Charles showed up everywhere, and though he didn't run the world, he certainly had a huge impact on it. I'm very proud to be able to call him my friend. So I ask everyone to please support this resolution.
All right, thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Benedict.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just quickly, for everybody who votes in the affirmative, could they be added as a co-sponsor?
If that's your request. All right. All right, so that's it in the queue. We're voting on RS 2021-1138, honoring the life of Charles Sumner. Everybody voting in the affirmative will be listed as a co-sponsor. Nobody else in the queue. All those in favor of the resolution say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Resolution is adopted. All right, I believe we're now down to late resolutions. This is RS 2021. It's, I believe, in your packet, a resolution approving a grant from the Tennessee Housing Development Agency to the Metropolitan Government acting by and through the Metropolitan Action Commission to be used for emergency rental assistance in accordance with the purposes set forth in Section 3201A of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. Councilmember Sawara, you are recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to ask for suspension of Rules 14, Rule 13, and Rule 7.
All right, so Director Zeitlin, can you explain what we're doing here? Because there are 3 rules that we're suspending.
Sure, and I can just kind of go rule by rule. Rule 13 is the rule that's normally suspended when you bring a late item. Rule 14 is the rule that requires the signature of the finance director. And that rule also states that no committee can hear a resolution or a bill unless it has the signature of the finance director. So because of that, this did not get a committee recommendation. So she has moved to suspend Rule 7, which requires a committee recommendation.
Okay, so there's 3 different rules that are being suspended to get this one before us tonight. Is there any objection to suspension of the rules to get this matter before us tonight? Seeing none, rules are suspended. Councilmember Sawara, you're on your late file resolution.
Thank you. I'd like to move for approval.
Okay, so the motion is to approve the resolution, properly seconded. Any discussion? Councilmember Mendez, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to ask either Ms. Zeitlin or Mr. Jameson whether the charter problem with this has been resolved since Mr. Solomon was appointed a couple hours ago.
Okay, Mr. Jameson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Mendez. Yes, I guess now Director Solomon executed the resolution.
Interim director.
interim director, has executed both the resolution and the contract.
All right, thanks. And just for everybody else's consideration, in addition to the rules problem, this late filed was inconsistent with the charter. And apparently Mr. Solomon has signed the grant contract and the resolution in the couple hours since he's been appointed, which solves the charter problem.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Mendez. Councilmember Suara, anything else?
No, I think that there's a good letter that went to everyone explaining why we needed to do this as a late filed. It's just to be able to allow us to get more money from Tennessee Housing Development Agency to be able to help with renter assistance. So I think the first batch of ERA money is already spent 100%. And so doing this now allows us to be able to make sure that we have more money available to give out to the constituents, and that's why it's urgent. So again, I move for approval.
Okay. All right, so the motion is to approve RS 2021, and it's not numbered. It's a late file resolution. Motion is to approve, properly seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We're now on bills on introduction and first reading. Any bills need to be considered separately on this one? Okay, without objection, we will consider all the ordinances on first reading in one vote at this time. Is there a motion to adopt? Got a motion to adopt, properly seconded. Any questions? Seeing none, we're voting on all bills on introduction, first reading at one time. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. We have, I believe, two late filed bills. This would be on page. It's on page 34 of the calendar. It's under K, late bills. The first one is BL 2021, unnumbered, by Councilmember O'Connell. Ordinance to amend Title 17 by change from IWD to RM40A NS zoning for properties located at 1301, 1307, 1309, 1403 Lebanon Pike, and Lebanon Pike unnumbered, approximately 1,850 feet west of Spence Lane, 15.56 acres. Councilmember O'Connell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Need to suspend the rules.
Okay, so Councilmember O'Connell is moved to suspend the rules. Did this one get to you, Councilmember Johnston?
It did. We had no objection.
Okay, Councilmember O'Connell has moved to suspend the rules to get this matter before us so that it can get on first reading. Any objection to suspension of the rules? Seeing none, the rules are suspended. Councilmember O'Connell, you're on your late file bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to move approval to brief comment.
Okay, so Councilmember O'Connell has moved for approval on first reading, properly seconded. Back to you, Councilmember O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is similar to something we did a few weeks ago where just an administrative error in the process of filing this caused us to get out of sync on this. The request was made in a way that would have caused it to be timely filed, so just want to get this back on track because this was no fault of the applicant or the process with council, so just want to encourage colleagues to support so we can keep this one on track. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember O'Connell. You've heard the discussion. Any discussion on this one? Again, we're putting it on first reading. All those in favor of late file bill being put on first reading by Councilmember O'Connell, say aye. Opposed, no. I think Councilmember Hancock secured that one. Thank you, Councilmember Hancock. That bill is now passes on first reading. We have one other late file bill. This is by Councilmember Toombs. Councilmember Porterfield is going to handle this one. This is an ordinance to amend Title 17 of the Metropolitan Code, a change from RS 7.5 to R8 zoning for property located at 2412 Old Matthews Road at the northwest corner of Old Matthews Road and Trinity Hills Parkway, 0.27 acres. Councilmember Porterfield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Do I need to move to suspend the rules first or exit the committee report first?
You would need to suspend the rules. There is no committee report on this one. It actually goes to rules. Councilmember Johnston, did this one come before you?
It did. We had no objection.
Okay. Councilmember Porterfield, you're good to go. You just have to move to suspend the rules.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to suspend the rules, please.
Okay, so Councilmember Porterfield has moved to suspend the rules to get this matter before us so we can vote on the first reading. Any objection to suspension of the rules? Seeing none, rules are suspended. Councilmember Porterfield, you're recognized on your late filed bill.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move for approval.
Okay, so Councilmember Porterfield has moved for approval to get it on first reading. Properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Bill is passed on first reading, excuse me. Okay, we are now on bills on second reading. We're on page 34 of the calendar. We have 3 bills on consent tonight. Item number 99, Bill 2021-793 is on consent. Let's see. 864, which is item number 102, is on consent. And 865 is on consent. Anything needs to come off of that? Okay, let's do that one real quick. These are bills on second consent calendar, BL 2021-793 by Councilmember Withers. Ordinance to amend section 13.08.030 of the Metropolitan Code with respect to liability insurance coverage requirements in connection with certain public rights-of-way encroachments. BL 2021-864 by Syracuse, Mendez, and others. Ordinance amending Metropolitan Code chapters 5.20 regarding the abatement of property taxes for certain improvements or restorations made to historic properties as authorized under the provisions of TCA Code section 67-5-218. That's Syracuse, Mendez, and others. And BL 2021-865 by Gamble, Murphy, and Nash. Ordinance authorizing the Metropolitan Government to amend existing public water main easements, except new water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements. Property located at 3517 Brick Church Pike, also known as Mulberry Downs Phase 2. Those are the 3 bills on second reading consent. Anything that could come off of that one? Okay, we have just a couple reports. Councilmember Porterfield, Budget and Finance. You've got one. You've got 864.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. 864 passed, 7 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions.
Okay, thank you. Planning and Zoning, Councilmember Murphy.
Thank you. 864 and 865 were 11 in favor, 0 against.
All right, thank you. And Public Works, Councilmember Nash.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We took up 865 and recommended approval, 9 in favor, 0 against.
All right, can you give me a motion to approve them all?
I
only
make
3.
that motion that we approve the consent agenda.
There you go. Got a motion properly seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. You adopt. Okay, we're back to the beginning of second reading. First bill up is BL 2020-582 by Councilmembers Johnston, Pulley, Nash, and others. Ordinance amending section 13.08.080 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws pertaining to the use of license plate scanner technology in the public rights-of-way. Councilmember Johnston, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'd move to defer for one meeting.
Okay, so this one was referred to Public Safety and to Public Works. Let me get those reports first. Public Safety, Councilmember Gamble.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. For 582, Public Safety recommended approval as amended, 5 in favor, 0 against.
Okay. Okay, and Councilmember Nash, you're recognized for Public Works.
I think they recommended to defer.
Sorry, yes, for a one meeting deferral, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. One meeting deferral, 5 in favor, 0 against.
Okay, Councilmember Nash, you're recognized. Public Works.
Public Works also recommended a 1 meeting deferral as amended, 8 in favor, 0 against.
All right, Councilmember Johnston, okay, so this has been based upon the rules. If we defer this, it gets the bill withdrawn.
Correct.
Okay, so Councilmember Johnston is moving to defer this bill 1 meeting.
Correct.
Correct? Properly seconded, so just so everybody knows, if it passes, if the deferral passes, this bill is withdrawn from the board, okay? Discussion on the motion to defer 1 meeting.